Good evening, everyone. Before we get this meeting started, just a couple of housekeeping matters. In the interest of safety, if there is an emergency, just follow staff directions to be ushered out. But just wanting to let everyone know before we open the meeting. Well, welcome to tonight's meeting of Georges River Council. I declare the meeting open at 7:01 p.m. I would like to acknowledge the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the Georges River area. I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who live, work and meet on these lands. If I could please ask you to stand for the National Anthem.
Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair. Beneath the radiant Southern Cross, we'll toil with hearts and hands to make this Commonwealth of ours renowned of all the lands. For those who've come across the seas, we've boundless plains to share. With courage let us all combine to advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Please remain standing for the opening prayer, which tonight will be led by Pastor Nathan Muse from the Grace Chinese Christian Church.
Please join me in prayer. Our Father in heaven, we know that you are the creator and sustainer of all the earth, and that you have given the wonderful gift of governors and rulers in order to help produce order in our society. May these members gathered here, as well as the citizens, be reminded of the wonderful privilege and opportunity we have to work together in this society. May you help the members in particular to remember to do what they can, to hear the considerations of others, and then grant them the wisdom, we pray, to know how to choose what is right, and the will to choose what is right, and then the strength to make it endure, and to place it into laws, into customs, into policy. We ask all of this in the name of the only wise God and his Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. There are no apologies for tonight's meeting, and there were no requests to attend via audio-visual link. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded for minute-taking purposes and is also being webcast live on Council's website. This recording will be made available on Council's website. The order of business is as shown in the agenda. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits the electronic recording of meetings without the express permission of Council. Mobile phones must be turned to silent during the meeting. We move over to disclosures of interest. I have a number of disclosures of interest, which are up on the screen. but I will read them out. Councillor Jamieson disclosed a special disclosure of pecuniary interest in item CCL 09223 for the report on the Environment and Planning Committee held on the 9th of October 2023. That is Mortdale Master Plan. For the reason that the councillor has an interest in land that adjoins or is adjacent to or is in proximity to the identified land, Councillor Jamieson will remain in the meeting and take part in consideration and voting on this item. Councillor Mort disclosed a non-significant non-pecuniary interest in item CCL 097-23, applications pursuant to Councillor Ward Discretionary Fund. For the reason that she is a swimming member of this club, Councillor Mort will remain in the meeting and take part in consideration and voting on this item. Councillor Stratokopoulos disclosed a significant non-pecuniary interest in CCL 091-23, reported a Community and Culture Committee meeting held on the 9th of October. For the reason that he serves on the committee of the Greek Orthodox Church of Kogarah, Councillor Stratokopoulos will remain in the meeting and take part in consideration and voting on this item. Councillor Marnie disclosed a non-significant non-pecuniary interest in item question with notice 033-23, update on matters resolved concerning Glen Lee, for the reason that he is a member of the Friends of Glen Lee and Oatley Flora and Fauna Conservation Society, which are campaigning for the preservation and acquisition of this property. Councillor Marnie will remain in the meeting and take part in consideration and voting on this item. Councillor Ficarra disclosed a non-significant non-pecuniary interest in item CCL 092, the Environment and Planning Committee on the Mortdale Master Plan, for the reason that she is a member of the Mortdale RSL and attends community meetings at this venue, which is within the area of the Mortdale Master Plan. Councillor Ficarra will remain in the meeting and take part in consideration and voting on this item. Tonight, there are 17 speakers registered for tonight's meeting. Submission number 13 will be read to the meeting by staff. I take this opportunity to remind the speakers that speakers have a 3-minute time limit. The first sound that you hear indicates that you have 1 minute remaining, and the second sound, please conclude your comments. I'll now pass over to council staff to call out the speakers.
The first speaker we have is Aidan Coghlan, who is speaking on CCL 092 ENV 03623, report on submissions, Mortdale Local Centre Master Plan, exhibition of 2 options.
Can you all hear me? Yep. Hi there, folks. First time showing up to a meeting, so I'm a bit nervous. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Aidan Coghlan, and I've lived around here all my life. I have a special attachment to the Georges River region, very much, including the Mortdale area. I'd like to share my support for option 1A, as I believe it's the only pathway forward to bring the much needed affordable housing for young people like me that is needed not just in Mortdale, but Sydney-wide. The housing shortage in Mortdale will only continue if we as a community decide to go forward with the option 2A, as the 4-story height limit will likely result in no development. We know it's not economically feasible for any developer to put in the time and capital just for 1 to 2 stories more of residential dwellings. We need new homes, especially next to train stations. When people live and shop next to train stations, they're relieved of the financial burdens of car ownership, which I've experienced firsthand. I owned a car for like 2 years. I couldn't afford to pay for it. Now I have to ride a bike around and catch trains. Yeah, so the option to go car free also means less traffic for our community on our roads as well. So local 1A is what we need to bring real change to Mortdale. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Speaker 2 is Brendan Taylor. He's speaking on CCL 092 ENV 03623, report on submissions, Mortdale Local Centre Master Plan, exhibition of 2 options.
Mr Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brendan Taylor and I hold the position of Vice President at the Mortdale RSL Sub-Ranch. This evening, I am humbly requesting your support in the endeavour to foster the advancement of the Morthdale Community Club, option 1A, with the amendment that asks for 6 stories for the whole RSL. The Morthdale RSL sub-branch has been located in this establishment since 1926, making it the oldest sub-branch in the district. It was in February, a decade ago, when my family and I relocated from Queensland to Morthdale, but it was not until the 25th of April that I experienced the genuine essence of community spirit when I attended the Anzac Day ceremony at the Morthdale War Memorial. After the ceremony, as it is tradition, I made my way to the RSL, where I found myself having a quiet beer by myself, reflecting not only upon my personal experience in the Defence Force, but also pondering the contributions of my mates and family members who have also served. A voice suddenly called out to me, "Hey, don't drink by yourself, come and sit with us." This is not unique to my personal situation. Following World War I, the local community recognised the necessity of a communal space where veterans could gather, engage in conversation, and if so desired, momentarily escape the traumatic experiences and horrors they endured. As it often was and continues to be, certain veterans choose not to engage in conversation with their loved ones. The Morthdale sub-branch offers a secure and welcoming environment for the veterans to gather, providing the opportunity to share their experience or reconnect with others. Our sub-branch remains committed to offering this assistance to veterans and active duty personnel. We uphold the enduring tradition of the Anzac Day spirit, organising Anzac Day and Remembrance Day ceremonies for the surrounding community and the Morthdale, at the Morthdale Memorial Park. The RSL Club plays a crucial role in this endeavour, offering a necessity space and the catering service to accommodate the attendance of numerous guests that continue to provide the essential space of the sub-branch executive committee and the way of office space and our monthly meetings. I should point out that the Morthdale Community Club is the only facility in Morthdale that can accommodate the growing numbers of Anzac Day. It is incumbent upon all of us present here tonight to uphold the well-being of our veterans. The endorsement of option 1A with the amendment of 6 stories will ensure we meet the necessary requirements of viability. Not doing so will inevitably result in the closure of the club, thereby bringing an end to almost a century of history and depriving myself, current members and future veterans of a safe place and a welcoming environment with friends. We also need to ensure the legacy that is left behind with our predecessors and ensure the long-term future of our sub-branch membership. The Council has consistently offered support to our sub-branch over the years, specifically in regards to our Anzac Day service, as well as the preservation of our Memorial Park. We respectfully appeal for the ongoing support by the Council to facilitate the development and financially stable club, and ask that you adopt 1A with the amendment of 6 stories for the RSL Club, which undoubtedly will result in favourable outcomes of the entire community, especially in this housing crisis. Thank you.
Speakers number 3 are Steve McMahon, James Neal and Jeff Denyer. They're speaking on CCL 092 ENV 03623, report on submissions, Morthdale Local Centre Master Plan, exhibition of 2 options.
My name is Jeff Denyer and I serve as President of Morthdale RSL Community Club. Tonight I represent 2,700 members of a not-for-profit registered club. The directors are volunteers and legally cannot benefit from any development of the club site. Our goal is to ensure that the RSL Club is here to serve the community for the future, as it's done through its long history. Our plans are to diversify income streams away from poker machines and build on our site, which is adjacent to major transport infrastructure and in line with current state government policy. Without 6 stories on the entire RSL site and a provision for affordable housing, Morthdale RSL Club would inevitably close. The land would be sold and ultimately developed with no community benefit at all. The community would lose. We have done the financial analysis and the FSR and height limit equating to 6 stories across the site is the absolute minimum that is viable for the club to break even on any development and continue to contribute to the community through affordable housing. With building costs increasing all the time, the window for the club is closing rapidly.
My name is James Neal, Mr Mayor and Councillors. The Australian dream of purchasing where young people grew up and being close to their work is becoming out of reach. 35% of renters are in rental stress. There is now 54% lower rental supply than before the pandemic. The uptake of providing affordable housing will not happen on a 4-storey development. It will not provide the necessary amount of housing for essential workers such as teachers, nurses, social workers and emergency responders that are currently being priced out of housing near their suburb of work. Early career essential workers or those on low to middle incomes are finding it impossible to find affordable housing in Sydney. The resulting squeeze on essential workers is a threat to public health and safety. So therefore, I put to you, we need to and we should endorse option 1A. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. I'm much happier on this side of the chamber than that side because here I'm declaring an interest as the director of the club, but also as a landowner, property owner and a ratepayer in Jersey Avenue, Mortdale. If I was on that side of the chamber, I would have to declare a significant pecuniary interest. The reason for that is because it's what the rules say. It's also because I am a direct beneficiary of this housing prices as it currently stands. It's because of low supply in Mortdale, which means rents are going through the roof, up 15%. It also means that the property values are increasing. So that's why, for good governance and transparency, I'm disappointed that some councillors may have declared an interest for having property, but are still voting on the matter. If we want to look after our children, we want our children to be able to purchase a house in the community they grew up in, we need to support reasonable housing supply. Thank you.
Speakers number 4 are Pauline Hearn and Alexandra Warmleton. They're speaking on CCL 092 ENV 03623, report on submissions, Mortdale Local Centre Master Plan, exhibition of 2 options.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here as a member of the RSL and I'm not involved in the running of the club in any way. I'm an active member, a resident in Mortdale, a homeowner, not an investor or a developer. I'm in favour of option 1A, which I believe is appropriate development for Mortdale and will support the RSL with an amendment to allow the progress to go to 6 storeys and above. When we first arrived in Mortdale, the RSL is how we met people, made friends and connection to local trades in the area. The RSL offers a local meeting place for multiple pubs and people. To name a few, Probus, Lions, Rotary, CWA and Jubilee Community Services. Also actively supports local engagement with charities such as Wounded Heroes Australia and Curry Kids, plus the essential job of supporting our veterans. The RSL supported people throughout COVID by providing online service such as the raffles so that the community could feel engaged and involved. Many members citing personally to me that this was an essential for their well-being and mental health during a tough time. It supports our older community, providing them somewhere to meet in a relaxed environment which is fully accessible. The facilities are reasonably priced, more so than some of the other clubs in the area. Parents can come to the RSL with their children to socialise with friends when other venues have already closed. And with the cost of living increases, most people can't afford to visit these anyway. I believe 1A will deliver essential services and housing to the Mortdale community without overdevelopment and will attract the diversity to the shops that we need.
Good evening. There are currently 120,000 homeless people across this nation, and this is a tragedy. The current house price has risen by 30% since 2020. House and apartment prices will rise nationally over the next 9 months and then surge in the year June 2025. According to the KPMG new report on Australia's capital cities, the simple matter is we are in a housing crisis. The answer is more supply. I stand here supporting the greater good for Mortdale and option 1, which is the recommendation from council staff, the professionals. Mortdale RSL has been committed to providing the greater community for over 100 years. This legacy needs to be preserved. Let's hope that common sense prevails. The negativity of some councillors and their agendas should not influence the overall need for the community. We want Mortdale Town Centre to thrive and to be a place where people want to come and live. This is the perfect opportunity to bring the community together and deliver a master plan that has a vision for the future. I thank you.
Number 5 is Michelle Cowan. Michelle is speaking on CCL 09523, Property Manor, David Place, Peakhurst, easement and road access issues.
Welcome everybody. I have a map that is supposed to be displayed for you. Vicky, have you got the map? Okay, get your attention to this map. I'd like to speak for the recommendation that council have put through. On this map, when you said, I live in the property which is marked X with red. That particular property is the same size property as the one in the development application concerning the extension of the road here. One thing I'd like to say about this report, first up, my mission, is that in this report I'd like to propose a couple of corrections. At item 11, where it reads 7, it should read 10A. And at item 12, where it reads 6 metres, it should read 12 metres. Just 2 corrections to the report. So from the map where I have my property marked as X, that particular property was built 30 years ago. But I'll just give you a little history. 60 years ago, back in the 1960s, the landowners that you see there were all asked would they like to contribute some land to continue David Place through. Those 4 particular landowners decided that they did not want to shorten their property for the extension, the full construction of David Place. So 30 years on, my family developed a dual occupancy and built 2 houses on the one block. The conditions that council set back in those days were that to have access to David Place, I needed to build 12 metres from my fence line, which would allow the extension of David Place at some future possible date. The other condition, and from that, I had access to David Place and assigned number 28 David Place. I think it's only fair that this development of 12 Ogilvy Street also be required to have that 12-metre clearance from their back fence. However, the development application in question does not provide that. The secondary building would be on the roadway extension should that ever go through. However, I also support council's recommendation that they do investigate whether David Place should continue or not for future. Thank you.
Speaker number 6 is Joe Vitagliano, speaking on NM 05823, traffic study for Mortdale Town Centre.
Yeah, good evening. My family are the owners of the IGA building in Mortdale, and the 10 parking spots which the council have taken is causing us a lot of stress, and our car park is now being a burden by other people parking to go shopping in other shops. Now, we lost 10 parking spots. We had 2 parking spots in front of our shop, which were part of our DA when the shops were built. Without even notifying us, they took them away, right? Also, up there in Cook Street, where the substation is, they put an EV charging station there. It was 4 parking spots. Now it's only 1 parking spot, 1 EV charging station, which doesn't even get used, right? If we don't have parking, now they want to close the road. Mort Street relies on a ring road. If you miss a parking spot, you go around, you come back, you try for a parking spot again. You close roads, we're going to end up like Parramatta. Parramatta Road at Leichhardt, where we got empty shops. We need more parking. If we were promised years ago that that car park where the Masonic Hall was going to be, it was going to be a multi-storey car park. Where is it? And they redid the footpaths. You go and have a look now. Footpaths are all marked, ready to be dug out again. It's, you know, there's no one talks to the landowners there. They just do, the council does whatever it wants to do without letting us know it, right? And if we keep on going, all we're going to do is Mortdale's going to shut down and we're going to have empty Morse Road instead of having a shopping centre there. Because our traffic, our intake in our shops is down from a year and a half. People count. It is down because people rely on parking. We can't give them parking. They're going to go elsewhere. You know, my rates don't go down. They always stay up. Every year they go up. But council goes out of their way just to get rid of Mortdale shops. You know, like if the IGA goes, we got nothing in Mortdale. So we need to get parking back there. Whether they knock down the 2 houses up there where the Masonic Hall used to be in the car park there and put a car park there. But they need to do it fast, not wait 5 years to do it, because we need people to stay in Mortdale. Like we've got Woolworths down the street. Like we've got a great IGA there now and a great fruit shop and a great butcher shop. But our shops complement all the other shops in the area. So we need to not close roads, but more parking. Okay, thank you very much.
Speaker number 7 is Sean Perry on CCL 092 ENV 036-23, report on submissions, Mortdale Local Centre Master Plan, exhibition of 2 options.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Sean Perry and I'm a strategic planner and lawyer and the current chapter lead for Street Level Australia's Sydney chapter. We are a group of over 100 locals passionate about creating beauty in Sydney, the sort of buildings that will be the heritage of future generations. We've spoken a lot about future generations today. We submit that the current commitment in subsection G of the item is too vague in its current form and will not lead to beautiful buildings or local character. We need a firmer commitment to preserving beauty in Mortdale for our kids. Design excellence, as it's called, is relatively meaningless and vague, and we would urge council to use their regulatory power to enforce traditional Mortdale-specific design in the future DCP. Known as a form-based code or pattern book, this approach allows council to explicitly control outcomes so that it is not a repeat of the ugliness that we often see being delivered around our city. This approach has been successfully used before by councils across Australia, the US and the UK to again deliver buildings that people know and love. Specifically, we urge council to do the following 3 things. Define what the community finds beautiful through close consultation. Enforce the use of local materials and known architectural styles. And write this DCP and the commitment to design excellence in precise language. We cannot allow developers any room to make shortcuts. We need to be controlling the outcomes. Should council adopt this approach in its DCP, and I urge you to make this commitment today, everybody wins. Council wins because it is given the social licence it needs to meet housing targets, and we know that that is crucially important. Housing wins because developers are given consistency and clarity, reducing costs and lead times, and they're then able to focus resources on delivering good outcomes for the community. And finally, community wins because the outcome is better than what was there before. We should be improving on our suburbs, and I guarantee you that a lot of the pushback from the community would be avoided if they could trust that the outcome was beautiful and desired. We cannot afford to deliver ugliness, for the most sustainable building is the one that does not get demolished. I urge you to put aside any differences you might have today and commit to ensuring that whatever the outcome is, we make it the best it can be for our kids and the locals that will call Mortdale home for generations. Thank you.
Speaker number 8, Patricia Malos, on NM 05823, traffic study for Mortdale Town Centre.
Good evening, everybody. I'm the owner of the Heritage Pharmacy at Mortdale. Been there for about 20 years. I feel as Joe said, the parking issues in Mortdale are quite significant, especially short-term parking. People just want to duck in and out and grab coffee or grab a pharmaceutical item, etc. My concern is more to get more information on the closure of Martin Place, which is we're right on the corner of Martin Place and Morts Road. That's another 5 or 6 spots that will be potentially lost. So my interest is knowing more about that kind of trial that may happen, when it will happen, how long it will go for, what's the framework for it, etc. So I don't know if anyone can answer that tonight, but just wanted to sort of know that's quite important for us and businesses down our end as well, because it will impact definitely some of the business on our end. Thank you.
Speaker number 9, Mark Wilson, on CCL 092 and ENV 03623, report on submissions, Mortdale Local Centre Master Plan, exhibition of 2 options.
Good evening, councillors and community. My name is Mark Wilson. I've lived in Oatley West for 22 years, and I've worked for Sydney Water for 32 years and been involved extensively in the operation of their assets. My view is any increase in population density will require massive upgrade of infrastructure. This includes sewer, water supply, stormwater, electricity, emergency services, health services, schools and roads. With the sewers in Mortdale were laid between 1944 and 1955. These sewers were designed to take flow from single dwellings and the current commercial dwellings that make up Mortdale. A large increase in population density will require them to be amplified. How does one amplify sewers that nearly all run through the back of private properties? These sewers all join onto a large submain called the North Georges River Submain. This sewer is already above capacity and will struggle to cope with a large increase in the catchment's population. This large increase in population will lead to an increase in sewer overflows in the Georges River catchment. There are already numerous overflows from this main down at Limekill Main wetlands during wet weather. This main cannot be amplified and will require duplication costing hundreds of millions of dollars. Stormwater, more hard surfaces and larger rooftops will put the ageing stormwater infrastructure under stress. The 1935 Sydney Water stormwater main on the western side of the railway was designed for single dwellings with lawns and gardens to absorb runoff. This too will have an increase in demand placed on it that it was not designed for. Water. The 2 reservoirs at Penshurst were built in 1914 and 1938. They supply this area and are already under stress. Any pumping failure at Allawah Pumping Station or on the Warrenora pipeline will quickly lead to a loss of supply, as such an increase in population decreases the time the water storage will last. The mains in Mortdale were all designed for single dwellings and current commercial density. The mains in Pitt Street, Macquarie Place, Martin Place and George Street were built in 1895, with the rest mostly laid between 1916 and 1930. The capacity of these aging reticulation mains and reservoirs will become insufficient to cope with such an increase in population. This will lead to a reduction in pressure and an increasing risk of losing supply in the event of any failure. Thank you.
Speaker number 10, Deborah Mackey, on NM 06423, Community Engagement Policy.
Good evening, councillors and gallery. The master plan was brought out whilst in COVID restrictions, which should never have happened. This did not allow community engagement, nor was there enough marketing done to get the word out on the proposed master plan. Myself and many members of the community have engaged heavily in this process, attending various workshops and meetings. We have consistently given numerous valid reasons as to why Mortdale is not a suitable suburb for the extent of development that is proposed. Yet, we are not given any reasons why council should choose to go against the community wishes and push for such development. Where is the transparency in all of this? The Save Mortdale Village Group was created out of the need for our community to be heard. We have consistently stated our slogan, no more than 4, due to our extensive research and knowledge of our suburb. Yet, we have received no direct feedback. We were told you were listening, but are you? It's my understanding that there is a flaw in the submission process. Sydney Yimby has posted a blog calling for submissions from people who do not live in this area and were gathering contingent to attend tonight's meeting. Will these submissions from people who do not live here and are not residents be counted? Which leads to my next question. What procedures are in place to verify, filter, scrutinise and check the credibility of all submissions? How are they governed and by whom? If there is no appropriate system in place, then it would appear the whole process could be severely compromised. This possibility opens up many more questions. First being, is it open to stacking the numbers for whatever gain? Again, is council listening or does council do what they want? Is the whole process just concocted to try and wear the community down so that they will give up? I support Councillor Jefferson's motion, however, I believe it does not go far enough. It's quite clear to the Mortdale community that the community engagement policy does not provide for council to engage residents with proper town hall type meetings, one-on-one meetings, council officers and residents together. The engagement process for the Mortdale Master Plan has been flawed, and it is apparent that all councils have not been engaged or been listening to the community over the Mortdale Master Plan process. The community engagement policy, when it comes to the Mortdale Master Plan, has not been community focused, and residents are closely watching the meeting tonight to see if they're actually supporting the Mortdale residents in their vision of no more than 4, or some Yimby group who has no association with Mortdale or to accommodate any single organisations. Thank you for listening.
Speaker number 11 is Catherine Ford, who is speaking on NM 06423, Community Engagement Policy.
Good evening, councillors. Council's consultation from the community's point of view has been flawed as you are still not listening. I support the motion by Councillor Jamieson. However, it does not go far enough for the following reasons. At Council's workshop in 2019, you sought the community's input on how we would like our suburb to be developed, and the overwhelming response was no high-rise. The diversity of housing options was preferred, townhouses, terraces and courtyards, and that is what our option 2A provides. The outcomes from that workshop were clearly lost in translation when the master plan was released. Fast forward to 2023 and the Ellen subway development now looms over our town centre. It is an ominous sign of how much council is not engaging and listening to the community. It represents everything we told council we don't want in Mortdale. Where is the green space around those buildings? The commercial space below the lighthouse has been empty from day one. Surely council understands the cynicism of the community that those 3 buildings represent. Council assures us that the rebuild of Mortdale won't look like the Ellen subway development because they have consulted with the community, but I don't see any evidence of that in our LGA. The community is right to be sceptical. Council's consultation period started with the release of the master plan during COVID. I can't help being cynical at that timing. The Save Mortdale Village Group has spent hours talking to people in the street. Council's consultation process must include this. It is the only way that they will truly hear and engage the community. Throughout the consultation process, the community's overwhelming concern has been keeping the village atmosphere. The argument that living out of Sydney and commuting is a valid argument, but why is our argument that we want to protect our lifestyle and the choice we have made to live in an area that suits our needs totally disregarded? People from outside our community seem to have more sway with council, and the locals are not being engaged. Council is making a decision tonight that will impact the community, and the community will be making a decision in September at the local government election that will impact council. The people of Mortdale will not forget where their support came from. Only one councillor lives in Mortdale and truly understands the issues we face. I thank Councillor Jamieson for the tremendous support she has given Mortdale and the community for the community engagement motion. Who else from this council, voted in by the community to represent the community, will stand up tonight and support our amended option 2A, no more than 4?
Speaker number 12, James Hamilton, on NM 06423, Community Engagement Policy.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address the council tonight. My name is James Hamilton, and I have lived in Mortdale for 23 years or so, and Oakley for about 25 years before that, so call it a rough 50 years in the area. I note that the activist group called the Imbies are here tonight. That's their name, by the way. With none of the founders, Melissa Sharath nor Justin, living in the local area, as far as I'm aware. But I do have to congratulate Sharath on his YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with it, he plays amateur urban planner to his YouTube community while he studies medicine at university, or engineering now, I think.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
But he doesn't study urban planning, and he is here tonight.
Mr. Mayor. Could the gentleman please speak about the...
Yeah, more than happy to.
Right.
More than happy to. But I will say that on their website, they state that Mortdale, and I quote, is a great place to accommodate increased height and density. Well, let me give you an insight of the current state of Mortdale. Childcare is near impossible to find. Schools are unable to cater for the demand. Olds Park is overutilised, and parts of it are a dust bowl by the end of every sports season. Trains are packed by the time they reach Mortdale Station. Excuse me. St George Hospital is always under some form of construction and limps from one crisis to another. Parking, even in residential streets in Mortdale, is near impossible to find. Oakley Park is like Pitt Street on weekends. Infrastructure is overwhelmed now. People like the Imbies and others make some pretty bold and sometimes emotional claims. They talk about affordable housing, but they never define it. They talk about fixing the housing crisis by increasing the supply of dwellings. Their logic is that doing so will put downward pressure on rents and prices. Well, let me assure you that developers are not in the business of solving any crisis. It is not in their interest to flood the market with supply because that reduces their profits. Private developers have an incentive to drip feed supply to keep prices high, and that's what they do. Counterintuitively, new builds actually push up median prices and median rents. This is because they tend to be fancy new buildings with all the mod cons. In fact, the new apartments in Mortdale at the moment are advertised as being high-end. Other places are marketed as being boutique upscale offerings. An increase in supply does not cause a decrease in prices. Average unit prices in Mortdale have increased by 20% over the past 4 years. Average rents have increased by 17%. This is after the rezoning and development of the 7 to 8 story units by the train station that will add over 250 more units. Affordable housing, I mean, are we kidding ourselves? Running my own accounting practice in Mortdale, I speak to a lot of people, and I'd say that most people are not anti-development. In fact, they are generally quite accepting of it. However, that development needs to be done in a way that reflects existing infrastructure and not overwhelm it. For these reasons, I support no more than 4 stories as per the committee's recommendations. Thank you.
I'll now read Speaker 13's written submission on NM 06323, rectification of street trees in Cogra CBD. We came to live in Cogra in 1978. Coming from the eastern suburbs, we remarked how few large established trees were there, how few native birds. So we became passionate tree advocates. We planted many trees and nurtured many others. Liaising with Cogra council officers, the streets became more green and attractive. The shrubs, bottle brush, which had been the basic street tree, were replaced with suitable trees, allowing for size and position. The resulting increase in bird populations is most gratifying. Jubilee Park was planted with many trees thanks to council and is now a much used green space, highly prized by local residents. Councils all over Sydney have spoken with one voice. We must have greener suburbs to both beautify and cool our areas. The street trees in Cogra CBD are basically doing well, some however are not. It is not enough to just plant trees, they must be watered and looked after. Nothing survives without adequate care. See the deserts of the world. It is most pleasing the Georges River Council will take up the task of rectification of the street trees in Montgomery Street, which are very sad looking. The rubber matting has been removed and a watering system will be put in place. There are many trees in the Cogra CBD in need of care and attention. Could we have more arborist gardeners to ensure that the greening of our area succeeds? Thank you, Susan and Terry O'Connor. Speaker number 4 is Roy Wu, speaking on NM 06123, Pedestrian Safety Measures, Rose Street, Hurstville.
Right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Roy, and I'm speaking on behalf of Tofu King, which is a local business situated on Rose Street, which is itself is just outside Westfield Hurstville. Now, I'm here to support Councillor Wang with his motion to install a pedestrian crossing on Rose Street. Now, crossing Rose Street is often dangerous, especially since it's located to a major shopping centre. So naturally, it'd be a high traffic area, as many customers and members of the community have noted. Now, vehicles entering, exiting Westfield often travel at uncomfortably high speeds, making the guarantee of a safe crossing uncertain during peak hours of pedestrian and road traffic in the area. The problem is compounded by the fact that there's no safe way of crossing Rose Street currently, with the closest crossing point being on Forest Road, which is quite far away. This issue is evidenced by the fact of occasional motor accidents on the street, including an accident 2 years ago, where an elderly woman was tragically struck and killed by an oncoming car. I'll present Councillor Wang after this with a petition of signatures expressing support from people derived from all sectors of the community, including the agreement of many local businesses such as Coles, Woolies, and of course, our neighbouring shops on Rose Street. That's the summary of what I have to say, and thank you all for listening.
Speaker number 15, Teresa Cott on CCL 09023, Floodplain Risk Management Committee, and CCL 09823, Overland Flow Floodplain Risk Management Study.
Good evening. The Floodplain Risk Management Committee has been a concern of mine now for about a couple of years. And there were a couple of reasons. There just didn't seem to be much happening. The final draft of the study and plan was presented a couple of weeks ago. It's been 9 years to get to that point in just 3 wards. We still have 2 wards that are missing. So that's a little bit of the real life out there. But what is happening to other places? And I'm representing a property owner from Gloucester Road. He followed good marketing practice, advertising, get a second opinion on your home insurance. So he did. Amy said, wait a minute, there's a river at the back of your property. And he said, no, there isn't. And they said, well, our map shows that there is a river. We are not going to offer you insurance. So he was a little bit stunned and he finished that phone call and he contacted a colleague and said, what do I do? I now took an interest because the maps that are part of the study and plan, the final draft that was presented to the committee a couple of weeks ago, they show that there is a depth of water of 1.5 metres. Now, that's a little bit sort of about my chin level. Now, why does Amy consider that this is a river when we consider it to be a storm canal? And why are we still dragging out the final study and plan for this overland water study to take so long to help these people? I am sure that there is somebody here who knows that this has happened to them or somebody that has. But why are we dragging out for 9 years just to leave these people wondering where they can go and get insurance?
Speaker number 16, Kim Wagstaff, on QWN 03323, update on matters resolved concerning Glenlee.
Evening, councillors. I speak on behalf of Oatley Flora and Fauna Conservation Society tonight on the update on matters resolved concerning Glenlee. Thank you for the response to QWN 00323. I offer the following brief comments. As pointed out in the report, there are a number of issues for Glenlee remaining unresolved at present, and we as a community want to keep the Save Glenlee campaign on the council and state government's priority agenda. Despite what Minister Penny Sharp has said previously, we believe the site is currently under threat in the very short term. It is a very disappointed organisation that the Minister has so far failed to honour her promise of instigating a new interim heritage order and authorising access for further heritage assessments for consideration of Glenlee for listing on the State Heritage Register. Council has budgeted the money for these assessments, so we strongly urge Minister to fulfil this commitment urgently. A DA could be submitted very soon, and the information from the natural and Aboriginal heritage assessments is not available at this stage. Equally, it is presumably possible that the site could come back on the market, and the information required for this eventuality needs to be prepared in order to take advantage of the opportunity to purchase. However, the business case that would underpin the decision to purchase the site by whatever level of government or agency, be it local, state or federal, has not even been started. Unfortunately, although Council supports the preparation of a business case, it has not been able to commit the funds for its preparation. Instead, Council recently wrote to Minister Penny Sharp seeking her support for state government funding to prepare a business case for the purchase of Glenlee. It is concerning that no reply has been received to date. We call on the Minister to expedite her reply, affirming funds can be made available. Further, we note the NPWS's alternative purchasing process option, and we urge Council to submit a community acquisition proposal to incorporate the site into the New South Wales National Park system. Council has already started addressing the eligibility criteria, and with additional information coming from further Aboriginal and natural heritage assessments, it should be able to make quite a compelling case. Please also note, OFF does not accept an earlier NPWS contention that the site is too small and or too far away from other parts of Georges River National Park, which is already a conglomerate of separate and discrete parcels of land. I hope I don't need to remind you of the value and importance of Glenlee's early settler cultural heritage and its Aboriginal and natural heritage to our community, the Georges River LGA, and to the state of New South Wales, not to mention the long-standing shortfall in open space in our LGA, which purchase of the Glenlee site would partially address. So please continue to press state and federal governments as well as Council's own efforts to find ways to get Glenlee listed on the State Heritage Register and to bring this wonderfully diverse property into the public domain. Thank you, Councillor.
Our final speaker is Theo Law on NM 06123, pedestrian safety measures, Rose Street, Hurstville.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and fellow members of the community. I know it's been a long day. I'm the last speaker, so I'll be quick. So I stand here in front of everyone to support the petitioner Councillor Wang's proposal of adding a pedestrian crossing to number 1 Rose Street, Hurstville, which also known as the entrance of one of the main entrances of Westfield, Hurstville. And apparently 2 years ago, an elderly woman was struck and killed when she was crossing that street. And I keep thinking that could be my auntie or my grandma or my relatives, and that could happen to anyone. It could be in any minute as we speak, someone crossing that street and might hurt and even killed and lost their life. How much is it going to cost the taxpayer and the council to build a crossing? Maybe hundreds of thousands, I don't know, to be honest, but how much is a human's life worth? So I leave that question in your mind tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes our public forum. Our next item on the agenda is confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. The first is CCL 088-23, confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 25th of September 2023. Moved by Councillor Smerdley, seconded by Councillor Konyaski. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next item is CCL 089-23, confirmation of the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 25th of September. Do I have a move for that motion? Moved Councillor Smerdley, seconded Councillor Jamieson. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. I have a few Merrill minutes for tonight's meeting. The first one is the Merrill Children's Cultural Art Competition. The Merrill minute will be up there and I'll take that as read. But a brief on this Merrill minute. The Merrill Children's Cultural Arts Competition presents a wonderful opportunity for young artists to gain exposure of their work and showcase days throughout the year that are culturally significant to them. To encourage cultural and artistic expression, young artists aged between 5 and 12 years old will be invited to design artwork that represents their views of days of significance, such as Christmas, Australia Day, Lunar New Year, Ramadan, Easter, Eid, Passover, Anzac Day, Orthodox Easter, NAIDOC Week, Dashain, Diwali, and any other days of significance that a child feels a sense of belonging in. Children's artwork that are chosen will then be incorporated into Council's acknowledgement and celebration of each day of significance. This could range from social media posts to posters or programs at our major events. Council officers will collaborate with local schools to promote the competition and provide further opportunities for cultural and artistic expression to be experienced and appreciated in the community. Art of all genres strengthens our community through creative self-expression and cultural appreciation by breaking cultural, social and economic barriers and sharing the message that as a community, Georges River residents are better together. Councillors, I put forward that motion to you. Take the vote on that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against, I declare that carried. The next Merrill minute is Georges River Council Cast Park Aquatic Facilities update. Since Council resolved in November 2022 to build the LGA's third aquatic facility on the site of the former Kogarah War Memorial pool site, senior staff have met with the Premier's office on multiple occasions to discuss this significant community project and the necessary deliverables to ensure future government investment. Council officers are in the process, with the assistance of suitably qualified consultants, of developing a detailed business case for a future Georges River aquatic facility, utilising the New South Wales Submission of Business Case Policy and Guidelines and the New South Wales Government Business Case Guidelines. This business case will build on the previous studies and investigations and draw together the evidence needed to support this future funding. The business case will consider the level of community use of a new aquatic centre, as well as expected social, economic and environmental benefits and costs. Following the completion of this detailed business case, Council will have the ability to progress discussions with state and federal government departments in the hope of obtaining funding to construct an aquatic facility. While this detailed business case is under development, Council officers are preparing a business paper to provide information to relevant New South Wales government representatives in order to seek funding for their design and development approval for a future aquatic facility. The detailed investigation and design of an appropriate aquatic facility will be undertaken in conjunction with the development of the new Cast Park Plan of Management and Master Plan. Community consultation on this significant planning document is set to commence in the 2023 calendar year, enabling the community to provide their thoughts on the future vision of the Cars Park site. In line with Council's community strategic plan, I'm pleased to provide the above information to demonstrate Council's commitment to the construction of a third aquatic facility and to provide an update on the significant work being undertaken by staff to support the community in its aspirations for an active and healthy lifestyle. Council officers are in the process of engaging a suitably qualified contractor to undertake the demolition, remediation and landscaping of the former Cogra War Memorial Pool site. Based on the substantial use of Carsbush Park during the summer months, including 3 very large community events being the Magic of Christmas, Australia Day and Greek Summer Festival, the demolition works are expected to commence in February 2024. Further information will be provided to the community on the demolition program following the engagement of the contractor. The community will be kept up to date on the activities and actions relating to the pool via the project page on our website. Councillors, this is a mayoral minute to be received and noted. I put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. We have a number of condolence motions tonight, and after the conclusion of all the condolence motions, we'll have a moment of silence. But I'll start with the first condolence motion, that is Val Brian Langton. Last week, we were all shocked to hear the passing of the Honourable Brian Langton, who had been such a wonderful servant of our community and the Australian Labor Party. After being educated at Marist Brothers Cogra, Brian quickly followed in his father's footsteps, embarking on a career in local politics, being elected in 1971 at the age of 23 to Cogra Council. 12 years of representation on this body, including a stint as mayor, evolved in a 16-year tenure as the member for Cogra. A fierce advocate for his local community, Brian is remembered for many achievements. Highlights including convincing then Premier Neville Wran to fund a cardiac unit at St George Hospital, a unit that has been established itself as one of the leaders in its field and extends the life of many of our residents. He also established with Phil Bates the annual cycling promotion at Anglo Square, Carlton, that was held for over 19 years. From 1995, Brian had time as Minister for Transport, Tourism, Fair Trading and Emergency Services before retiring as a local member in 1999 to be succeeded by Cherie Burton and now Premier Chris Minns. The Premier is on record stating that Brian was a close confidant and highly valued his support. Councillors would be aware that amongst many other roles, Brian represented the Premier for many years on our Traffic Committee. A committed supporter of the Australian rules football, Brian was president of the St George Club in the early 2000s, as well as chairing the New South Wales judiciary in that sport for roughly 20 years. He was also appointed to chair Sydney Ferries and a board member of Buses New South Wales. Of course, life outside his political career also saw volunteering for many local organisations, including in the early 80s, the board of the St George Hospital, the St George School for Children with Disabilities, as well as Lifeline, Wesley Mission, St Vincent's de Paul, St George Cancer Care Centre, and indeed a plethora of good causes. Brian and his wife Elizabeth were married for 47 years, and to her and their 3 children, Davina, Adele and Celia, and families, we extend our sincere sympathy. While we mourn the loss of a magnificent contributor to our district, they suffered the tragic loss of a husband, father and grandfather. Councillors, my motion to you is that Council notes the passing of the Honourable Brian Langton, former Mayor and member for Cogra, and we extend our deepest sympathies to his wife Elizabeth and their family.
Through the Chair, I would like to say a few words. Would you like me to leave it till condolences, or would you like?
No, you can.
Okay, thank you. Look, I won't repeat everything that you mentioned about the history of Brian's political life and his commitment to his community. But the Honourable Brian Langton had, let's just say, his passing was very special to me. It meant a lot to me, because In early 19, and I won't go into the details of everything that you said, Mr. Mayor, but in early 1994, apparently he had heard that I was very much involved with the local community, especially with the Greek Orthodox communities activities, and I had just finished being involved with the construction of the Greek Orthodox Church of Cogra and the subsequent construction of the church's community centre. At the time, there were 4 wards in Cogra. There was West Ward, East Ward, Middle Ward, and North Ward. At the time, also, one of the Labor councillors in Eastwood was retiring, and a councillor from North Ward was moving over to East Ward because Eastwood was a Labor Party that had a stronghold, if you like. I was invited by Brian to run in the North Ward as a Labor Party councillor, and I thought about it for a while, and that was about 30 years ago. And I thought, well, either you commit yourself to the community and do something, especially when you don't have kids, or you go off and you try and make a lot of money in your chosen career. I chose to actually serve the community. And I've got to say that Brian Langton, the Honourable Brian Langton, was responsible for springboarding and giving me a kickstart in my political career. I'm really very grateful for the support he gave me as the Labor State member for Cogra, along with the very valuable mentoring that he provided. Councillors and community, Brian was a true statesman. He was truly focused on his community, went out on a limb for them, while standing on his principles of fairness, equity, and integrity. He functioned with the utmost care, compassion, and devotion to his locals and his family. Rest in peace, Brian. To me, your memory will always be eternal for the way you touched my life throughout those memorable years that you mentored me and assisted me as one of the Labor Party councillors in North Ward. My sincere condolences go to his wife Elizabeth, daughters Davina, Adele, Celia, and his several grandchildren. Our local community owes a lot to a man who endlessly sacrificed much of his energy and his time for the good of others.
Thank you, Councillor Patras. Councillor Lansbury.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I would like to just add a few words to what you've both said tonight. Noting the sad passing last week of the former Labor Mayor for Labor Mayor at Cogra and then member for Cogra, Brian Langton, the Honourable Brian Langton. Brian was 75. As you've covered, he was educated at Norris Brothers at Cogra and began his career at Cogra Council before he moved on to State Parliament. He was an integral part of the AFL Sydney's Tribunal for more than 15 years, serving much of his time as its chair, as you alluded to, Mr. Mayor. And I believe that days before his passing, Mr. Langton was awarded AFL Sydney Life membership, making him one of fewer than 60 people to hold the honour across the competition's 120-year history. And I believe he was delighted with this accolade. I think that it's also worth noting New South Wales Premier Chris Minns paid tribute to Brian in a statement last week, and I think it really sums it up. He said that he described him as a mighty representative of the Cogra electorate and a lifelong local in his community. He was a vocal advocate for the people of his community throughout his time as councillor and mayor, and he sustained that advocacy throughout his more than 15 years in New South Wales Parliament. I would just like to add, just on a personal note, I always found Brian to be a really decent bloke. The first time I met him was at just a Labor Party barbecue not long after I joined, and he at that point in time was the member for Cogra. And what struck me was just how much he adored his wife Elizabeth. He doted on her, and that, you know, he went up in my estimation for that, and he also doted on his 3 daughters. So, you know, he was a family man. He has his wife is still with us, and so his 3 children. So I'd like to also extend My condolences to Elizabeth and his 3 daughters and his grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lansbury. Councillors, I put forward that oral minute to you. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. We continue on condolences, and I have a condolence motion from Councillor Lansbury.
Thanks again, Mr Mayor. Council notes the passing over the weekend of former Governor-General and Labor Party leader, the Honourable Bill Hayden AC, who was aged 90 years. Bill Hayden was born in Brisbane in 1933. After national service in the Navy, he joined the Queensland Police Force in 1953, and following training in Brisbane, he transferred to the Mackay region in North Queensland, working as a police officer while studying economics part-time at the University of Queensland. He joined the Labor Party in 1957. Mr Hayden was elected to federal parliament in 1961 as the member for Oxley, and he held that seat until 1988 when he resigned to become Governor-General, an office he held until his retirement in 1996. When Labor came to government under Gough Whitlam in 1972, Bill Hayden was appointed Minister for Social Security, where he introduced Medibank, Australia's first system for universal health care, as well as the nation's first single mother's pension. In June 1975, he succeeded Jim Cairns as Treasurer, a position he held until the Whitlam government was dismissed by the Governor-General Sir John Kerr on 11th of November 1975. Labor was defeated at the election 1 month later, and Bill Hayden was left as the only Labor MP from Queensland at the time. He was leader of the Labor Party and leader of the opposition from 1977 to 1983. And Mr Hayden's famous quote that if a drover's dog could lead the Labor Party to victory, that's the way the country is, came on the afternoon he was replaced by Bob Hawke as Labor leader, who then led the Labor Party to win government at the 1983 federal election. He served as Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade from 1983 to 88 in the Hawke Labor government. After winning his second term of government, Bob Hawke offered Hayden the ceremonial role of Governor-General. Hayden was a Republican, but he accepted the position, resigning his parliamentary seat and ministerial role in order to take up the post in early 1989. Bill Hayden didn't put his hand on the Bible to swear allegiance in his new role, instead offering a simple affirmation of loyalty. Gough Whitlam once told Bill Hayden, a known atheist, "Comrade, the Catholic Church will get you in the end." And Whitlam was correct. After a lifetime as an atheist, he underwent a complete change of heart in his spiritual beliefs and was baptised in the Catholic Church at the age of 85. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese paid tribute to Bill Hayden on the weekend as a legend of our Labor movement, and that a state funeral will be held to honour his life. I would like to extend my condolences on behalf of Council to Bill Hayden's family and friends. He is survived by his wife Dallas, his wife of 63 years, and he was father to 4 children, 3 of them still living, and his grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lansbury. Councillor Marnie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This condolence motion is about Wendy Cornish, OAM. Only resident Wendy or Claire Cornish sadly passed away on 13th of October. Wendy became a teacher before becoming an accomplished and popular principal at Hurstville Infant School, where she bravely challenged some of the decisions made by the Department of Education. After she retired, Wendy dedicated her life to a variety of causes and organisations, including Oatley Lions, the Country Women's Association, and Oatley Flora and Fauna Conservation Society. Wendy was best known for her ability to fundraise for charities, including Bezina House or St George Hospital Community Cancer Care Centre, and the Lamrock Committee, which provides medical equipment and services at the hospital. Wendy was a common sight around Oatley, Mottdale and Connells Point, enthusiastically selling tickets which earned her the titles Raffle Queen and Mrs Raffle. Wendy was an expert on a variety of things. For example, she was sometimes called on to speak at the Cogra Historical Society. In 2002, she was awarded an Order of Australia for her volunteering efforts. Wendy also had a strong commitment to the environment and established what is possibly the first verge garden within the LGA, and her own yard was a wildlife refuge. As neighbours, Wendy and I had countless chats over the years about her garden and green issues generally. However, along with probably most other Oatley locals, I had no idea that Wendy had received an OAM, which was testament to her extremely modest personality. I attended a funeral today along with Mark Pure MP and former MP and Georges River Mayor Kevin Green at Mortdale Community Centre, which is almost at capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. That concludes our condolence motions. If I can kindly ask everyone to stand for a moment's silence. Thank you all. You may be seated. Our next item on the agenda is committee reports. First committee report is CCL 090-23, report of the Assets and Infrastructure Committee meeting held on the 9th of October 2023. Councillor Kaniarski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendations of the committee with the amendments to ASS 029-23, design and construction of Hurstville Oval Sports Lighting. So as per my discussion in the council suite and what's on screen.
Sorry, Councillor Kaniarski, you're moving items 030 and 031 first, and then holding off on.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So moved Councillor Kaniarski, seconded by Councillor Smerdley. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. So that brings us to ASS 029-23. Councillor Kaniarski.
So the amendments should be up on the screen if it can be highlighted as discussed in the council suite earlier.
Councillors, we have an amendment up there on the screen before you. I have moved by Councillor Kaniarski, seconded by Councillor Smerdley. Give you a moment to have a look through that. Is there any discussion on the matter? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next item on the agenda is report of the Community and Culture Committee meeting held on the 9th of October, CCL 091-23. Councillor Nancy Liu. Sorry, Nancy, if you could just put your mic on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Because I know, as far as I know, Councillor Catrice will make a bit of commitment, amendment to the first item, COM 031-23. So I would like to recommend the two items, COM 022-23, COM 033-23, being adopted. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Liu, seconded by Councillor Catrice. Sorry, your microphone, Councillor Liu.
CM 032 and 23. I believe that I have a peculiar interest there.
Oh, yes, correct, Councillor
And
Catrice.
so does Councillor Stratocopoulos, I think. So.
Yes, so we'll.
So we possibly can't move those.
No, that's
the only
fine.
one that we can possibly move is the last one.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So you withdraw your name, Councillor Catrice, and
I withdraw my name for
you're remaining in the chamber, you are? Yeah. Okay, so
which is adoption.
Okay, we're just dealing with the committee of item 032 and 033 for now. 031 has not been included in that. We'll be dealing with that once you come back into the chamber. No, 032 and 033 are going to be dealt with now, and then we're going to deal with 031 once you return. So as Councillor Liu was moving, that is seconded by Councillor Kanyarski. I'll put that for discussion. Any discussion on the matter? There being none, I'll put forward the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. We can ask Councillor Catras now and Stratocopoulos to come back. Yeah?
Yes.
Yes. So now we move over to item COM 031-23. Councillor Nancy Liu. Councillor Liu moves that motion. Councillor Catras, you're happy? Okay, well, before you second that motion,
I'll second it.
You second that motion with an amendment. We'll put forward the amendment and see if the mover would like to accept that amendment.
Well, we'll put it up. But
The
can I
amendment is up,
clarify what the amendment is? Because,
Sure.
Because it's rather difficult to understand.
Okay.
Yes, the amendment basically indicates that in Part B, may I say that both these policies are excellent and they do provide a significant guidelines and proper guidelines as to how we're going to provide grants and donations to the community and also provide sponsorships. But there was one little area that I thought I needed to clarify. I needed to get some information, which I discussed with the Director of Community and Culture, and that's Part B. And what Part B is saying, sorry, I'll just have to turn this off.
Point 15 says you must not participate.
Sorry. Sorry about that. Obviously, someone giving me instructions. And that was the later part. Having said that, basically, I need to provide an explanation. And what it says that Council adopt the grants and donations policy attachment 1 with the below amendment. 1.5b involve activities, programs, or events for religious purposes unless the applicant can demonstrate a broader community benefit. Now, I need to clarify.
Councillor
Catras probably won't understand.
Councillor Catras, sorry, just one note. Just check that that's acceptable to Councillor Liu.
I think she made an explanation of it, actually.
That's okay. We'll just because then we can make it the motion, Councillor Catras. So,
Yeah, I accept it. Thank you.
okay. So the mover has accepted that. Councillor Catras, go.
Yeah, when you go to this policy, grants and donations policy, and you go to, and you won't have it with you, I presume, but you go to page 9 of 25. Under the policy statement, which involves general principles, 1.5 indicates. Now, I'll read it out. Council will not award grants or donations to entities or individuals for projects that, and you go to Part B, involve activities, programs, or events for religious purposes. So what it's basically saying, if we don't clarify that, then you'll find religious organisations like the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, the Uniting Church, the Church of England, the Baptist Church, the Hindus, the Islamic associations, the Buddhists, etc., will not be able to apply for donations, for grants or donations. But and I understand where that's coming from, Part B. Part B might be intended not not to allow religious organisations to apply for funding for things like a mass service or a religious service of some type. But some of these religious organisations do provide various services to the community, various events, activities and programs that are of a benefit to the greater community. So, for instance, under this sort of situation, it's quite possible that the Salvation Army might not be able to apply for a grant. The Society of the St. Vincent de Paul might not be able to apply for a grant. The Uniting Church, with its Cogra Storehouse that provides packages of food, may not be able to apply for a grant. So all I'm asking for, I understand where the director's coming from and where that policy is coming from. All I'm asking for is just to add to that 1.5b, unless the applicant can demonstrate the broader community benefit, which will allow the council to provide donations to those religious organisations.
Thank you, Councillor Catris. Is there any other further discussion on the matter? There being none, I'll put forward the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. We move over to the report of the Environment and Planning Committee meeting held on the 9th of October 2023, and I'll pass over to Councillor Money.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I move that items 03723 to 03923 from the Environment and Planning Committee, as detailed in the report, be adopted by Council, and pull out item E and B 03623, which is a report on submissions Mortdale Local Centre Master Plan.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. That's moved by Councillor Marnie, seconded by Councillor Jamieson. Any discussion on the matters?
Mr. Mayor, I have an amendment.
I think that's the next one, Councillor Catris. Yeah. Yes. Is there any discussion on those items that are up before us? No. So I'll put forward the motion. We will need to go through division because it's environment and planning, so I'll pass it over to Vicky.
Your vote, please, Mr. Mayor.
For.
Councillor Amby Haverham. Councillor Borg. Councillor Fakara. For. Councillor Jamieson. Councillor Catris. Councillor Kinjarski.
For.
Councillor Lansbury. For. Councillor Liu. For. Councillor Marnie.
For.
Councillor Mort.
For.
Councillor Smerdley.
For.
Councillor Stratokopoulos.
For.
Councillor Symington.
For.
Councillor Wang.
For.
That's 15 unanimous.
Thank you. I declare the motion carried. Councillors, we move over to the next item, which is ENV 036-23. That's report on submissions, the Mortdale Local Centre Master Plan. Councillor Marnie.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I move that item ENV 03623, as per the recommendation from the Environment and Planning Committee meeting, report on submissions, Mortdale Local Centre Master Plan. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Jamieson. Councillor Catris.
Yes, I do have an amendment. I do apologise for jumping the gun a little bit in the first place because I heard the Mortdale Master Plan was before us, but at this stage I do have an amendment, and if I could bring up the amendment, I think it'd be self-explanatory, which is, what it is that it's essentially the same recommendation from the Environment Planning Committee, with the exception that I've modified or amended Part B to delete option 2A and include option 1A. The other part A is being deleted, and the part A that I'm proposing is amend the heights along Victoria Avenue to 13 and 14 stories. And generally everything else is the same.
So you meant 13 metres and 4 stories.
Yes,
not
so
13 to 14 stories.
13 metres and 4 stories.
Okay, so just confirming that's 13 metres and 4 stories.
13 metres and 4 stories.
So Councillor Catras is putting forward that amendment. I'll ask the mover and the seconder if they accept those amendments. Councillor Marnie?
No.
That's a no from the mover, no from the seconder. Councillor, I'm looking for a seconder to Councillor Catras's motion. Councillor Ficarra seconds that motion. The amendment will be debated first. So, Councillor Catras, as the mover of that motion, would you like to speak to it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you for that. I suppose everybody here and most people here know where I stand with this Mortdale Master Plan. Where I do stand, and I'll make it clear, it's that I support the 4-story maximum height limit generally throughout the whole of that Mortdale shopping centre. Generally, and I say generally, because the only area that I'm proposing to add an extra 2 floors is, and that is in 1A, is just around the railway station. I do believe that, yes, I've heard and I've listened to the majority of the residents, but I also have to weigh a balance between not having any development take place and having some development take place. And that balance is not just for the RSL, but it's also for not just for the maintaining the RSL's existence, but it's also for the future generations. And I think that's the most important aspect of the whole thing. You also have to understand that Mortdale, Riverwood and Beverly Hills were identified in our local strategic planning statement as areas that will be reviewed for the purpose of increased densities. Now, I say that because I've got to say something else which is more important to the residents and also more important to you as councillors. But before I do that, could we have, I've asked the director to put the 2 proposals up on the screen so I can actually indicate, because I get a feeling that some people are saying that the council's trying to push 6 stories throughout, and in actual fact they're not. Now, can we move it across so we can put both of them up in comparison, or you can't do that? Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's go to 1A first up, if you can, unless you can move it first. They're both going to be in comparison with each other. Could you stop the clock, please? Thank you. That's it. Now, have a look at option 1A, councillors, and I think that the community can have a detailed look at that. I know it's a little bit difficult to decipher, but the only part that is being proposed in option 1A to go to 6 stories is that dark blue area which abuts the railway station. It's only that dark blue area that abuts the railway station. The other side, on the south side, councillors, is already 6 stories. So the north side, what is being proposed throughout the whole of that area, which doesn't include is all 4 stories, a maximum of 4 stories. So where we had in the past, and we've come a long way here, councillors, where we had in the past that both sides of Morts Road was going to be 6 stories, and some other areas so further out from Morts Road was going to be 6 stories. We only have what is effectively, I would suggest having a guess, about 15% to 18% at absolute maximum of the site areas going to 6 stories on the north side. The rest, the 85%, 80 to 85% remains at 4 stories. Having said that, the other side, option 2A, is 4 stories everywhere, with the exception of the one on the south side, which is 6 stories. So I'm making it clear that only about 15 to 18% of the site area, the study area, is going to 6 stories. Now, so what we're saying about keeping Mortdale a village atmosphere and a village, well, that's going to happen in the overall majority of that study area. We're talking an extra 2 stories on 18% of the sites. Now, councillors, I think you need to consider that as a situation which is a reasonable compromise. I would prefer more, because I actually think that the kids of the future, and I call kids anyone that's under 30 in my case, the kids of the future are going to have serious trouble trying to actually move an extension. Yeah, thank you. It's been seconded and it's been moved. Now,
Sorry. Extension moved by Councillor Konyarski. Do I have a seconder for that? So Councillor Fakara. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against, I declare.
Thank you.
Declare it carried.
Thank you. At this stage, what you've got to consider, councillors, is this. It's a reasonable compromise between weighing the balance of trying to keep the majority of the area 4 stories of that area, the study area, and a 15 to 18% area being lifted to six stories. We have now the consequences of going with 2A are twofold. Number one, which is the most important aspect as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that we are not taking the opportunity to help in providing an increased supply of housing. We're not taking that opportunity. We're wiping it out because option 2A does nothing for redevelopment to take place.
Sorry, point of order.
Yeah.
I know you're showing 1A, but 2A, sorry.
But I'm pretty sure it's a point of error.
Sorry. If you can just give me what your point of order is.
Yeah, I think it's perhaps not clear, but 2A, the option that was by the committee meeting was actually not 2A. It was a combination of 1A and 2A. So it may be that housing section there was actually part of the compromise for the at the committee meeting. So we're not actually 2A does not actually exist from the committee meeting.
Well,
sorry, I'm trying to
I'll
understand.
clarify that if you like, through the chair. Basically, 2A, the one that was approved by, was a small block being where it was proposed for it to go from R, or maybe we can present director to clarify. Thank you.
I think it's posed as a question more so, or a point of clarification to the director. I'll pass over to the acting general manager, Meryl Bishop.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Catras. The issue raised by Councillor Jamieson is correct, that the recommendation that was endorsed by the committee was 2A, and I will read out the rezoning of the block bound by Newman, Cook and Victoria Avenue and Cook Lane from R2 to R3, and with a floor space ratio of 0.7:1 and a height of 9 metres.
Could you read the street addresses, please?
Rezoning of the Cook. Sorry, so if I show you on the diagram
Could you
there.
show me on the diagram where that is? Is that little red?
Yes.
So we're talking about.
It's so Newman Street, Cook Street, Victoria Avenue, and Cook Lane, which is. If you've got the pointer, can you put the pointer on option 1A?
Well, it's basically.
No, you had the mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
you
there.
bring the mouse over exactly. Just up there. There. No, down.
Yeah,
There.
that's it. Now that's that little portion that's basically, I'll continue on this a minute. That's that little portion which has been proposed now for townhouse development. So really, that's going to happen. Question mark. Now, that is R3, 0.7:1, 2.5 stories. It's townhouse village. Anyway, I'll continue on unless you think there's a point of order, Mr. Mayor.
You can continue, Councillor.
Thank
you. You'll get your opportunity, Councillor Jamieson.
Now, that's basically what we're saying. that, yeah, fair enough. You're right about that little square for townhouse development, which is what it was. Not unit development, townhouse development. Having said that, that's never going to happen. That whole option 2A will never happen. It's not feasible, it's not viable, and what you're actually telling the Department of Planning is take it or leave it, but they're going to send it back. They will send it back. There is no reason why the Department of Planning is going to turn around and say, we accept a non-flooding proposal, a non-master plan, a plan that does not do nothing. What we're saying here, we need to compromise with a little bit of effort with that area around the railway. Having said that, councillors, the important thing to remember is you cannot go to the department or the state government and say to them, we're doing nothing. For the past 30 years, and I asked the directors, for the past 30 years, wasn't 4 stories allowed in that vicinity? Sorry, the manager. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, 4 stories has been permitted in that part of the Mortdale Local Centre
And
for
nothing,
a number of years.
and can we confirm that nothing happened?
The only recent redevelopment is on the southern side of the railway station where the heights are increased to 6 stories.
So that's the only area that's happened. So for 30 years, nothing has happened, and we're going to go for another 30 years for nothing to happen until the younger generation decide to storm you and say, hey, listen, we need housing. We need housing. Now, having said that, if you don't want to help them, and if you don't want to increase a little bit of density there, I suggest you dig deep into your pockets. And the reason why I suggest you dig deep into your pockets is because none of them are going to afford to pay the deposit. None of them. I don't have kids, but I'm seriously concerned with the future generation. I have no kids, but I'm seriously concerned with the future generation. I do have nieces, nephews, and grandnephews. Not one of them has been able to actually put together a deposit on their own to buy a miserable 1-bedroom unit. And that's not and the only way they did it was with help from the families. Now, and that's not coming from families that are not well to do. They are well to do.
Councillor Catras, you can just, clip it to the chair, your debate.
Okay, now having said all that, I really implore you councillors to see the writing on the wall, to actually do something which is of some sensibility for the future generation and for maintaining some type of village atmosphere. Thank you.
Councillor Ficarro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify, I haven't commenced my speaking time as a seconder for this amendment yet, but can I please ask through you to the Acting General Manager, can I please clarify, does this motion, I empathise with what the representatives from the Mortdale RSL are saying with wanting to provide affordably priced housing to this area on their site. Does this amendment currently provide for 6-story E1 zoning to the entirety of their site, or would we need to further amend this amendment to allow for that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the option 1A only zones part of the RSL site as 6 stories and the other part is 4 stories. The 4 stories is adjacent to adjoining residential land. So complying with our policies where we have high density or commercial adjacent to residential land, we ask for a transition. So the 4 stories does allow that transition.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to commence my speaking time, please. I speak in favour of the amendment moved this evening.
Thank you to all who spoke and have attended this evening. I'm supportive of the nature of reasonable and sustainable density in town centres that the original master plan and option 1A present. I will now detail my main reasons why. Research shows that density that is planned well can deliver on important sustainability and health outcomes for residents. Imagine if more people could live a life where they can walk to do their grocery shopping, walk to visit the doctor, walk to the train station to commute to work, or walk to go to school. This master plan is opening a door to allow more people to live healthier lifestyles and reduce their dependence on cars. In implementing option 1A, the Mortdale Town Centre will continue to be a place where people can live accessible, sustainable and healthier lifestyles in a medium density environment. It will not be close to the level of density of centres such as Hurstville and Kogarah, but let's look at some of the reasons why Hurstville and Kogarah got to how they are. Urban sprawl has had a poor impact on the lifestyles of all of us sitting in this chamber, whether we realise it or not. Over the past half century, urban sprawl has contributed to major losses in our rich agricultural land in peri-urban Sydney. That means that we are all paying more for fresh food that comes from longer distances with higher food miles, contributing to negative climate change in the greater Sydney environment. Gone are the days where we were eating a sustainable supply of fresh greens or meat that were grown in the Hills area or the Campbelltown LGA or Camden, because there are now houses sitting on that land. Why? Because there has been a systematic lid on dwelling supply in more established urban areas of Sydney, and thus previous state governments have had to unlock that land for housing to find places for people to have a roof over their heads. In the process, we have damaged a previously sustainable food supply system in our own backyard, in which we will feel the impact of that forever. Please think about this the next time you buy your groceries or the next time that you sit down for a meal. These decisions have real consequences on many matters, not just what we directly see in front of us. Also in this process, because of the harms that urban sprawl is bringing, Sydney has been approving development on a generally haphazard lot-by-lot basis. Our city has not been planned well. Master plans are an answer to all levels of government planning well for reasonable density over a period of a generation, avoiding the situation we have seen develop in Hurstville and Kogarah. This systematic lid on dwelling supply has partially contributed to Sydney having one of the most expensive housing markets in the world. There is an abundance of evidence that demonstrates a link between housing supply and affordability. Gone are the days where people could reasonably assume that with a lot of hard work and responsibly saving their money that they could afford to live in the area they grew up in, or could afford to live a reasonable distance from their place of employment. I talk with people who work at my local supermarket, people who are cleaners, people who work in aged care, people who work at St. George Hospital. I regularly encounter people who work in our local area who cannot afford to buy or even rent close to where they work. Keeping a lid on supply contributes to a system where the Georges River area is for the some and not the everyone. Keeping a lid on supply is inconsistent with the values that we say we have of supporting diversity in our community, locking people out who are not fortunate enough to live here, but still expecting somebody to do these jobs that selflessly serve our community. It is sad. It is really sad. My heart breaks for people who travel over 1 hour's commute on public transport to work at my local supermarket, and for people doing night shift work at our local hospital who live in Liverpool and Blacktown. Don't these people who serve our community deserve a fair go? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ficarra. We've had two speakers for the amendment. I'll take speakers against. Councillor Jamieson.
Hi, can I get the pictures up, please? Thank you. I just thought, since a lot of the people probably have never been to Mortdale, and are speaking about it, might be a good idea to sort of give it a good overview of Mortdale. Oh. That's nice. No. Just a second. Okay. So thank you for everybody that came here to represent the community. Given that the Mortdale Master Plan has gained interest from many people, I'll just go through a few of the issues with Mortdale. Mortdale has an extraordinary amount of units, which is indicated in this map in the dark red colour. Penshurst is the neighbouring suburb, which also has a high number of units, also depicted in the dark red. We also have a high number of duplexes and dual occupancies in the orange, and uniquely a large area of villas. In terms of housing diversity, we provide a lot. However, we are missing terraces with at least 3 bedrooms and shop-top housing in Mortdale's housing mix. As you can see, Mortdale already provides great housing diversity and high density. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, of the 7 areas in the Georges River area, the Mortdale Penshurst area currently has the second largest population in the LGA, behind just Hurstville. Mortdale is pulling its weight more than Kogarah City is at this point in time. Mortdale is pulling its Mortdale has been successfully able to keep the character and feel of Mortdale Shopping Village despite being one of the most densely populated areas. This should set an example for other areas to increase density without mass overdevelopment and losing the character of a suburb. Oh, that's probably a bit hard to see, but Mortdale is unique because while it is a thriving community, its main street is to a nowhere, a dead end. The main shopping strip is not connected to any major roads. The roads are already at their capacity. Pitt Street and Macquarie Place are now one-way, one-lane streets. Mortdale is described as an island because there is a one-way single-lane bridge at one end and an underbridge pass with one lane each way at the other end. While I appreciate that the transport study was completed to Australian standards, it did not consider the fact that the busy times in Mortdale are not the traditional peak hours because the centre of Mortdale is not a route to major roads. Our peak times are quiet in comparison. Interestingly, despite this, the traffic report indicates the traditional peak times are at 87%. Mortdale is unique that it is surrounded by many schools. Our peak times are school start and finish times, as well as lunch times. These are the times when Mortdale is at capacity. Can I have the next slide, please? This is our peak hour at 3 p.m. The first picture is of Morts Road, where it is one-way road up near the station. The second picture is standing at the corner of Cook Street and Ellen Subway. To the left is to bumper cars. To the right is bumper to bumper cars right up to underneath the Ellen Subway and actually past that onto Railway Parade. The queue continues and banks around to a Railway Parade. Each day this occurs. The residents of Mortdale don't need a traffic study to tell us that these roads are at capacity greater than 100%. We live it every day. In addition, recently 10 parking spots were removed, which had a very noticeable effect on parking and traffic. It affected our shops. I'll refrain from talking about our sewage issues and that was covered by one of our speakers. Can I have the next slide, please? This design, the design of these buildings are not in character with the rest of Mortdale. This is characteristic of Hurstville and Kogarah. And the next one, please. And the next one. This is 18B Letitia Street. It is a commercial building that was built recently in 2019. It has a floor space ratio of 1.9 to 1 and is 3.5 stories. This is in keeping with the rest of Oakley. This is what people of Mortdale have requested with no more than 4. The housing crisis, we cannot state that the housing crisis will be solved building more units in Mortdale. I work in the field of finance and housing, and I'll quote the experts in my field, Alan Oster, NAB Chief Economist. I think in some ways migration coming down will help. And number 2, need to incentivise a lot of public housing. Hopefully, after a combination of less migration and a little bit more public housing, some of the infrastructure issues will pull back and allow purchase costs to come down with the building industry. To state that the extra unit supply will solve the affordability or housing crisis is untrue and deceptive. I believe as elected representatives, we need to be responsible for what we say and ensure that there is accurate information. There seems to be confusion with affordable housing and the use of it. This is very apparent when I spoke to a lot of the people that supported the position of the RSL. They assumed it meant that their children's houses would be cheaper.
Sorry, Councillor Jamieson, do you think you'll need an extension of time?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Borg, seconded by Councillor Marnie. I put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against, I declare that carried. Go on, Councillor Jamieson.
Almost finished, not that one. This is they assumed it meant that their children's house would be cheaper. This is not true. The affordable housing structure that was previously proposed in the original Mortdale Master Plan was incentivising the developers to provide an element of social affordable housing. It was not to make it more affordable for our children. The use of the language around affordable housing can be confusing, and we need to be careful that we don't accidentally mislead people. My son in Year 9 has been taught about rapid urbanisation. This is where we try to force too many people into a city without the appropriate infrastructure. The United Nations warns, when poorly planned, rapid urbanisation can lead to congestion, higher crime rates, pollution, increased levels of inequality and social inclusion. Inequality with cities has economic, spatial and social dimensions. We are feeling the effects of rapidisation. This is what we're talking about when people have to be moved out. We have tried to share the burden of government-provided public housing with private industry and developers, but it has had mixed success, as we can see with boarding houses, which if not managed by community housing providers, it is not affordable. As the NAB chief economist states, we need to invest in public housing, such as Chris Minns is doing in Riverwood. Which leads me to my last point, housing targets. The council were given targets to meet housing needs. When planned properly, infrastructure needs should work together with development and immigration figures should be catered for in these targets. Georges River Council is on target to meet our 2036 targets. Our target is 14,000 by 2036, not 2023, 2036, and we have only 1,000 left. Once the Beverly Hills Master Plan is completed in the next year or so, we should meet these targets. This is without taking into consideration the Mortdale Master Plan. So for those who say we're not taking our weight, we are taking our weight. Mortdale is not unique in that housing delivery is not being taken up by developers. We have capacity in our LGA to cater for another 13,000 homes right now. Upzoning is not going to change the situation. Many factors are hindering the delivery of housing in Mortdale and indeed across the whole state, including interest rates, bank lending restrictions, building costs, which have gone up astronomically, material supplies, labour supply, and uncertainty in the economic due to global events. During the consultation process, people did ask for more family housing. So I believe we need to make the amendment in the Cook Street, Newman Street area to accommodate for terraces with an emphasis of 3 or more bedrooms. We have a shortage of family housing. For the people that live in Mortdale, that listen to people, we know we have a shortage in family housing, not 1 bedrooms, not 1 2 bedrooms. We've got that in the 250 lot of apartments in family housing, because the people of Mortdale know that they need family housing. I believe that we need to listen to our constituents. As elected representatives, I believe we are supposed to present our case to the state government, not act in fear of the state government. I believe that we need to listen to our constituents. As elected representatives, I believe we are supposed to present our case to the state government. Not, as I said, I think we've got very valid reasons that we can actually take to the state government. I appreciate anyone out of the area coming in and watching tonight. I think we've got a good example of some great planning in Mortdale that you can actually take back to people and the resistance. We're working with street level, so we actually asked street level to come here to explain the importance of character, because once people like street level that sit there and work with the community and deal with the issues, we don't have to spend 3-4 years fighting each other between the council and the people who can actually work collaboratively and move housing faster. Because sitting there and assisting on highs and skyscrapers is not going to work for a lot of communities. We need to work together and get moving and move these master plans faster.
Councillor Jamieson, if you could just wrap up
Yeah,
your comments because of time.
I appreciate anyone. However, I'm elected to represent the residents of Mortdale, and it has been loud and clear from the beginning. No more than 4.
Councillor Jamieson was the first speaker against the amendment. Do I have another speaker against the amendment? Councillor Amber Hay-Park.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While Councillor Jamieson was telling her wonderful speech, I was on realestate.com. The last couple of properties that were sold in Mortdale was about $1.3 to $1 million for a 3-bedroom home. So to the points of what Mr. Councillor Catchus has spoken about, the future of the children right now is a problem as it is with the current issues with housing affordability. But also, interestingly enough, when we heard from Councillor Catchus and also Councillor Fakara, they did not bother to mention about the actual consultation process at all and what the community have strongly said about no more than 4. I want to express my gratitude for everyone that's attended today, who's speaking on all aspects of this particular issue, and also those who are playing downstairs, who are sitting in the lobby. I think I need to be very explicit here. I firmly stand by option 2A, and my stance is driven by particular issues here. First, I had mentioned in the Environmental Planning Committee that when I was a candidate for Oatley, we spoke to many people, and I know Councillor Fakara helped me with door knocking, and majority of those who spoke about this particular issue supported no more than 4. The second thing is I understand and acknowledge the housing crisis issue that some people have alluded to today, and also some in the community also from who spoke tonight. I am a regional director at St Vincent's de Paul, and I get housing as a problem, particularly about homelessness was also raised today. But I can assure you they're not able to afford a $1.3 million apartment in Mortdale. I think one of the biggest issue, and we have to be candid about this, that the burden of addressing housing supply challenge in New South Wales is real, and it doesn't fall on Mortdale. Our local government area has already played its part, but the responsibility must be shared across the state. Now, I know previously a couple of councillors also referred to the Premier Chris Minns' comments around it, but he's also recently asserted, and this was already provided in I think Daily Telegraph recently, about emphasising the point of envisioning rapid expansion of mid-sized apartments from 3 to 4 stories. Apartment complexes to alleviate the housing crisis in Sydney. And this includes streamlining and planning process to increase new home supply across New South Wales. So it's also important to note through a FOI process in that article that there was 3,000 sites indicated government owned that would be of interest for this redevelopment. And also it also indicated 11 suburbs, one being Riverwood, as being not Mortdale, Riverwood in this LGA, where will be prioritised by the state government when it comes to rezoning. So while some councillors support a position that does not want to support the community's desire, which was clearly indicated in the consultation process, just remember that there are over 55,000 people that are asking for housing, and we need to address it. And Mortdale, whether it's option 1A or option 2A, it's actually not going to address that issue at all. The third point, the proposed amendment does not align with particularly the amendment that's put forward today doesn't actually align to the extensive feedback received through the submissions and consultation. I think specifically it says 396 submissions supported option 1A and around 525 submissions endorsed the option 2A. That's a majority. So this was kicked down the road when I first was elected in September last year for 2 options to go to the community. This laughs at the face of the process of the consultation process at all. Like, we're not even listening to the community. We've asked them what they want. The majority have said what they wanted. And I think I recall Councillor Catras asked how much money we've spent on this, and what I recall was about $300,000 on a process which we're not even listening to what the community wants. The fourth issue, myself and Councillor Jamieson attended the workshops. I think you actually, Councillor Jamieson, you went to all of them. And it's very obvious that there's a desire for family homes, which Councillor Jamieson mentioned about, which is addressed also with that expansion in that, the originating recommendation in option 2A. I think the final thing that I also want to address is, and I think we had some people speak about the parking issues in Mortdale. It's pretty abysmal. Councillor Jamieson also had some obvious pictures of the day-to-day challenges, which doesn't corroborate to the timing that's indicated in the report. And I think it's very obvious, and I think hearing from Mr. Hamilton's comments, option 1A will definitely contribute to the issues that we're currently having in Mortdale. So I implore all councillors to stand with the actual community of what they've said, to honour their requests, and to unite in our pursuit of what's best for Mortdale. I think we need to embrace a vision that preserves our community's character and enhances it for generations to come. So, like I heard from Ms. Ford tonight, I think the council election's obviously approaching in September, and I think the constituents will know who's voting what tonight, and we'll be thinking about that in September. Thank you.
Councillor Amber Hay-Parr was the second speaker against the amendment. I will take a speaker for the amendment. Councillor Lansbury.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking in support of Councillor Catras's amendment back to the original officer's recommendation of option 1A with some slight amendments. There are a number of reasons I'm going to do that. First, I just want to challenge a couple of the comments that have been made tonight about the lack of consultation. I think back in 2019, COVID was after 2019, but I'm just actually going to say, as a councillor who was actually on council during that point in time, we had real reservations with the option that went out on exhibition. There was consultation by whoever was the consultants at that particular time, I don't recall who they were, did consultation with the community. They came back and they recommended 8 stories with affordable housing. As councillors, we rejected that and went back to the drawing board, and the council officers engaged other consultants who came back with something which was far more measured, which was pretty much option 1A, removing the affordable housing option, which everyone's talking about, but again, people don't really understand what it is. It is a social housing option, but we've removed that. That's not going to be happening in Mortdale at this point in time, and housing pretty much everywhere is unaffordable. The consultation process this time round was far better than what happened in 2021. And I can tell you, as councillors, we did most of our workshops online at that point because of COVID, and it was very difficult to get a real proper handle on what that actual master plan was coming up with. That's when we got the 8-story option. Pretty much down Morts Road, I think, if that was correct. I think it went down Morts Road as well as Pitt Street. This is a far better outcome. Option 1A provides a range of housing, and as Councillor Catras mentioned, the 6-story component is limited next to the railway line. I'm going to repeat a lot of the things that I said from the committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. Sorry if I'm going to bore people, but I think that they're worth repeating. We are in a housing crisis. We just are. We have had a couple of speakers here tonight who younger speakers. I think our first speaker was talking about affordability to be able to live in the area that he chooses to. We had a number of speakers here tonight in support of 1A. So for people to claim that we haven't listened to the community is just not correct. Just because we haven't, people like myself who are supporting 1A have a different view from you, doesn't mean we haven't listened to the community. We listened to you back in 2021 and we moderated it dramatically to an outcome now that will provide housing in the future. If we go with option 2A, which has had the same controls in place for 20 or 30 years, I think, and not really anything has happened. I think Ms. McMahon suggested that perhaps one building on Morts Road might have been built, and Councillor Catras did mention about the R3. There's not a great uptake for that. I wish there would be. I was talking to a couple the other night, that an older retired couple that are moving out of the area because they want to downsize from their house, but there's nothing around here for them. And so they're moving to Leichhardt, which is a great loss for our area. And I'm sorry that you find that amusing, that people move away because they can't find a house in the area. Okay, let's see me laugh about this. Let's talk about renters. Let's talk
Sorry, if
about
I could just
people like me
kindly
who are
ask
renters.
Sorry, Councillor Lansbury, if I could just kindly ask the gallery just to remain quiet while Councillor Lansbury delivers her speech. Thank you.
I'm just going to read you something for those of you who find this topic really amusing. Impact economics and policy lead economist Dr. Angela Jackson said a fundamental lack of available rental properties was the cause of record rents in Sydney. Overall, it's driven by low vacancy rates. What that means is that there aren't enough properties and there's too much competition, and that's driving higher rents across the board. For those on low incomes, possibly even middle incomes, it will mean increasing levels of financial stress and not being able to afford other things, including health, food and education. Other experts have warned that the rental crisis will lead to increasing inequality and homelessness. Well, I don't, for one, find any of that very funny. I find that really concerning, and I would like to think that as a society we can do better than that. We need to, everybody, it's a human right to be able to put a roof over your head. And if we go with this option of 2A, which will probably maintain the status quo that's been the same way for 20 or 30 years, and I'm sure everybody who wants to preserve that will be really happy, but where are the rest of us going to go? I've said this last time, people are living in parks, in tents, people are living in cars and vans, people have to leave the areas that they grew up in because there is not enough housing to accommodate the population that wants to live here. I'm not even going to go where Councillor Jamieson went about immigration. That is a completely separate issue and completely irrelevant to this particular argument. But I just sort of think it's all very well for those people who are okay and they have their house and they might have an investment property, they might have a holiday house down the coast or something like that. They're okay. But there are a lot of people in our community that don't have that. So if you want to continue to draw up the drawbridge, by all means, support an item of 2A, which is effectively going to mean no additional housing in Mortdale. No developer is going to walk in and want to develop something that is the controls have existed for 20 something years. There is housing stress in our community, in our society. Mortdale's not responsible for solving the housing crisis. I've said that 100 times, but we all have to play our part. We all have to give a little bit. You know, people who lived in this area like myself, and I know I've said this before, people will be glad to see the back of me and you'll have your chance next September if I run. We can't afford to live around here anymore because there is not the housing stock. And it's not always a 3-bedroom freestanding house that or 4-bedroom or whatever that some of us live in now. There is not the available units for rent. The average unit price is $670. I looked online today as well. And for apartments, 2-bedroom apartments are $700. There's a lack of supply, and until we get serious about creating supply, we're only going to be kicking this problem down the road for future generations. Your children, my children, our children are all going to be in more housing stress than we are now. Seriously, I think we need to be very honest with the fact that Cobra North has taken far more than its fair share, Councillor Jones. Drive down Regent Street, drive down Victoria Ave, drive down the highway. When I was first on council in 2004, we were debating the merits of the heights of apartment blocks. It's 6 to 7 stories, which was an outrage. You know, by the time we left in 2016, it was 13, 14 stories. Now we're talking about 20 stories. You know, let's look at what's going to happen at the landmark site on the corner of Durham Street and Forest Road. That's going to be 20 stories. The building, the big black obelisk, it looks like something out of 2001: A Space Odyssey, but next to the railway line, that's 20 stories. You know, the buildings in front of it, take note of that next time you drive past where Woolworths is, sort of 6 to 8 stories. And that's Hurstville. Hurstville has also taken far more than its fair share of high rise. And you cannot ever consider 6 stories high rise. It's just not. You know, we're probably used to 4-story walk-ups and people are quite comfortable with that level of apartment dwelling. But 6 stories is not high rise. 19, 20 stories is high rise. So, you know, I would just ask for people to show a little bit of compassion and thought for the future and look forward, and don't sort of think that the sky is going to fall and suddenly we're going to have 6 stories all the way down Pitt Street next weekend. We're not. This is going to take so many years for us to get to a point where we're going to increase the density. But if we keep kicking it down the road, we are never going to get the outcomes that we need.
Councillor Lansbury, do you need an extension
No,
of
just
time?
I'll finish on this, Mr.
Sure.
Mayor. There was a report done by the Committee for Sydney, another think tank, about housing affordability, and just to sum up, there are 3 options. Bringing Sydney in line with other global cities, because we're one of the 5th most expensive cities in the world to live in, remember. Bring Sydney in line with other global cities by introducing inclusionary zoning target to provide affordable housing in new developments and all rezonings with appropriate transitional provisions. We've missed the boat on that with this one. Invest in more social and affordable housing. That's the state and federal government's responsibility to do that. But as a council, we can do this. Point 3, significantly increase housing supply and do it well with good transport connectivity, affordable housing, open space, schools, childcare, shops and services. And by supporting option 1A tonight means that we're actually supporting a future for our community and our families. Thank you.
Councillors, I'll take another speaker for the amendment. Councillors, no, is there another comment?
I'll speak on it.
Councillor Smurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise tonight in the chamber to speak in favour of option 1A. Now, before I begin, I have heard both sides of the debate, and I just want to let you know it's now time to make a decision. Now, my reasons begin with the state government's new housing targets policy. Right now, housing targets on the rapid rise through influx of population growth. We're not the only local government area in Sydney, let alone New South Wales, have been given targets to fulfil. If we as a council are not pragmatic and partially fulfil what the state government is now requesting of us in terms of housing targets, then we will remove our autonomy. Our neighbouring local councils have recently approved plans, with Canterbury Bankston approving 6 to 9 story blocks in Narwee and Bayside approving new zonings in its CBDs. They are doing their bit. Without some housing targets being met within our LGA, this will ensure the State Government Department of Planning will intervene and design a master plan for us without the same community consultation process everyone was afforded more recently. Over the weekend, we saw how the State Government announced plans to chop up Moore Park Golf Course without any consultation. We do not want that here. My generation and Generation Z, home ownership is almost untenable. Speaking from experience, I only have 3 friends that I grew up with in this area, only 3, that have successfully bought their own property. They're all married, and they're earning just well above the median salary of $55,000 a year. The rest are either renting or still living at home. It's mentally draining and depressing for my generation, who need a goal or a dream to aspire to keep them going. Home ownership is the goal we all aspire to, and aspiring to a dream that is unrealistic nowadays can be a real kick to the guts. Now, I have daily interactions with Morthdale business owners. They are suffering. The lack of customers has really hurt, and that's why we've seen 5 shops close recently. More people will mean more customers, and we can keep Morthdale beautiful and a vibrant suburb relying on small business. This is the real demand for urban renewal. Now, touching on urban renewal, whichever master plan option is approved tonight, we as a council will need to ask the state government for money to start looking at street upgrades and parking upgrades within Morthdale, such as a commuter car park, and perhaps revisiting the Morthdale Library. This will help with urban renewal within Morthdale and help businesses get more customers. And on my last point, which Councillor Ficarra touched on, we need more housing supply within Sydney, because at the end of the day, urban sprawl is not good for the environment. Land clearances, in a time the whole world is looking for climate action, is not the solution. I hope this chamber takes my points into consideration.
Councillors, we've had 4 speakers for the amendment, 2 speakers against. I'll take a couple of speakers against, and then we'll probably put the motion. Councillor Bull.
Yeah, I'd like to speak against the amendment put forward by Councillor Catras. We've heard lots of feedback tonight from the community, and Councillor Jamieson has also touched on it in regards to the traffic issues that exist around Mortdale. I don't feel like they have been addressed. The concerns around the different peak times that Mortdale experiences with its unique positioning with schools, I don't think has been addressed. We've had a lot of discussion around affordable housing. This master plan makes no provision for affordable housing, and the council resolved to remove the affordable housing element from the master plan. So the discussion around affordable housing in this context is not valid, is not part of the discussion. If we wanted to talk about houses being more affordable to buy, which is not the definition of affordable housing, we all know that developers need to make a profit on their costs. So I do question where's the evidence that more units is going to reduce the purchase price of houses when developers need to cover their costs. I want to touch on Councillor Jamison's point around the density that exists in Mortdale, and Councillor Jamieson brought up a map that showed that there is great diversity already in Mortdale with a number of units and villas already in the area, and made the comparison to Cogra and Cogra North. I know Cogra North is experiencing rapid increases in density and development, but the statistics that Councillor Jamieson quoted are from the Australian Bureau of Statistics that councillors were provided with a brief on, that the Mortdale and Penshurst area is the second highest densely populated area. So that is in the briefing that was provided to councillors on population targets. Councillor Catchus is shaking his head, but I looked it up last night, so I can confirm that that's what it says. So Mortdale and Penshurst currently has the second densest population in the Georges River LGA, followed just behind Hurstville. So Mortdale is doing its heavy lifting, and Georges River as an LGA is doing its heavy lifting in development. We are on track to meet our targets. And Councillor Jamieson also mentioned in her speech that there are many other factors that will contribute to the delivery of housing. And I think one of our speakers spoke on that as well, about developers drip feeding development into the area to continue to keep the demand for the housing and keep the prices up. These are not things that we can solve by increasing density and upzoning areas. So I will be voting against the amendment put forward, and will be supporting the original recommendation from the Environment and Planning Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillors, any other speaker against the amendment? No? Councillor Catchus, you get a right of reply. Would you like to use up your right of reply?
Just to say a couple of things.
Sorry,
I'm glad you appreciate my risk.
Sorry, Councillor Catchus.
Anyway, having said that, councillors, I find the statistics that have been purported to us that Mortdale and Penshurst, I presume that you said you've looked it up, the highest densities. I'm trying to find a 14-storey building in Mortdale. I'm trying to find a 10-storey building, a 6-storey. Well, yeah, there are 6-storey, but the whole of Cogra North is full of 13 and 14-storey buildings, and we're comparing Mortdale of 6 stories to, I don't know, the whole of so many, and of course Hurstville, 16, 18 stories. How can someone tell me that Mortdale has a higher density of population than some place in Cogra North, which has, I don't know, 2,500 units in one concentration, has got a lower density? I find that very peculiar, and I'd really like to see the facts on that. Having said that, councillors, the other thing I'm finding very difficult is to understand the comment made by Councillor Andy Haypaha. In other words, talking to the gallery, you're saying, remember the councillors that voted against your situation and vote against them. Now, I understand that most politicians will chase the vote, but there's also something that indicates to a council that you've got to maintain a certain integrity for future generations. Don't just chase the vote. Surely, Councillor Andy Haypaha, surely, and especially someone, and especially, look at the young ones here. Look at the people that desperately need houses. Let me put it to you in one simple terms. When my father and my mother and me and my brother came to Australia. We were 3 years old. My father bought a house in Enmore when it wasn't a trendy suburb. It was a migrant suburb for £4,500. He earned £50 a week at that time. £50 a week, £2,500 a year. What does that? That was sort of like a $5,000 house, £5,000 house was like twice his income. But if you take all your, living expenses out, it took him 3 to 4 years to pay it off. 3 to 4 years, not 15 to 20 years. And if you can pay it off, we're talking about a unit, a 2-bedroom unit costing $700,000 to $850,000. You're expecting the younger generation to come up with $100,000, which isn't even enough. Isn't it? Go to the bank with $100,000. Tell them you want to buy a $700,000 unit. They'll go, there's the door. Go and see your parents. Come back with some more money. Make it $200,000. We might even look at you. And we're also talking about $1.3 million for a house that recently sold in Mortdale. That's ridiculous. $1.3 million. When a few years ago, 10 years ago, those same houses were $500,000 and $600,000. $1.3 million, you think that's reasonable? Is that what you're saying to me? When to save up $1.3 million nearly 50 years? So, councillors, and thus, by the way, let's look at, we need more family houses. We need more family houses. What constitutes a family? I presume 2 partners getting together, organising children, having children. So what you're telling me, all we're going to have coming to Mortdale is families. We don't want single people. We don't want anybody else. We just want families who can afford an $800,000 to $1,000, $1 million unit.
We didn't say that. I think just stick maybe to the point. I did not say we only want families. I said we've got more than enough units.
That is correct.
No, I appreciate what you say. You did say you didn't want family, but a 3-bedroom family unit is basically a 3-bedroom family unit, which appeals to families, but not to singles because they can't afford it. Not to young people because they can't afford it. Having said all that, councillors, it's about time we look into the future. It's about time we looked at the younger generation who actually really, really are desperate to convince you that they can't. And don't tell me that more supply doesn't decrease prices. I don't know where you get that logic from. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Catchers. Councillors, Councillor Marnie, I'll just briefly, because that concludes debate on that topic.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I only had a question, please, on the amount of housing density in Penshurst/Mortdale compared to, say, Cogra and the rest of the LGA. How dense is that?
Councillor Marnie, I think that could probably, I think that could probably be a question we'd notice, and council officers would be able to provide you with that response at some time. But on this motion, ENV 036-23, that concludes the debate. I will now put the amendment to the floor for a vote, which will be done by division. Councillors, I'll pass over to Vicky to take the vote.
Your vote, please, Mr. Mayor.
For the amendment.
Councillor Amby Paperhar.
Against.
Councillor Borg.
Against.
Councillor Fakara.
For.
Councillor Jamieson.
Against.
Councillor Catras. Councillor Kinjarski.
For.
Councillor Lansbury.
For.
Councillor Liu.
For.
Councillor Marnie.
Against.
Councillor Mort.
Against.
Councillor Smerdley.
For.
Councillor Stratokopoulos.
For.
Councillor Symington.
For.
Councillor Wang.
Against.
9 votes for. It's 9-6, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry. Councillors, that's 9 votes for the amendment, 6 votes against. That now becomes the motion, and I declare the motion carried. We need to do it again. Okay, we're going to have to do that vote again. The amendment now becomes the motion. I'll put forward the motion. All those in, sorry, I need to go to a division. Vicky, if you could take the vote again.
Mr Mayor, your vote, please.
For the motion.
Councillor Amby Hapeha.
Against.
Councillor Borg.
Against.
Councillor Fakara.
For.
Councillor Jamieson.
Against.
Councillor Catras.
For.
Councillor Konjawski.
For.
Councillor Lansbury.
For.
Councillor Liu.
For.
Councillor Marnie.
Against.
Councillor Mort.
Against.
Councillor Smerdley.
For.
Councillor Stratokopoulos.
For.
Councillor Symington.
For.
Councillor Wang.
Against.
That's 9 votes for.
I declare the motion carried. To the members of the public that joined us in the gallery tonight, I thank you for attending tonight and making your voice heard. I respect the fact that everyone has a point of view and that tonight we saw democracy and debate in action. And at the end of the day, we thank you all for your time, and we'll move on to the rest of the agenda now. Councillors, the next item on the agenda, sorry, okay, well, councillors, we might have a 5-minute break so that people can have a quick recess and allow members of the public to slowly leave the chamber. Thank you. We will come back at 9:40 p.m. Thank you. Oh, sorry. We're good now. Councillors, we move to the next item on the agenda, which is item CCL 093-23, reported the Finance and Governance Committee meeting held on the 9th of October 2023. Councillor Jamieson.
Thank you. I move the recommendation that the Finance and Governance Committee recommendations for items FINS 038 to 23 to FINS 039 to 23 and FINS 048A 23 as detailed below be adopted by Council.
Moved by Councillor Jamieson, seconded by Councillor Marnie. Is there any discussion on those matters? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next item on the agenda is CCL 094-23, tabling of disclosure of interest. Councillor Jamieson.
I move the recommendation that Council receives and notes the report regarding the tabling of disclosure of interest returns for councillors and designated persons.
Moved by Councillor Jamieson, seconded by Councillor Borg. Any discussion on the matter? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next item on the agenda, CCL 095-23, property matter, David Place, Peakhurst, easement and road access issues. Councillor Jamieson.
I move the Councillor Officer recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Jamieson, seconded by Councillor Deputy Mayor Borg. Any discussion on the matter? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next item on the agenda, CCL 096-23, delivery program end of year progress report, July 2022 to June 2023. Councillor Jamieson.
I move the Council Officer recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Jamieson, seconded by Councillor Catras. Any discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next item is CCL 097-23, applications pursuant to Council Award Discretionary Fund Policy, October 2023. Councillor Jamieson.
I move that the applications for funding pursuant to the Councillors' Ward discretionary fund policy as outlined in the report be approved by Council.
Moved by Councillor Jamieson, seconded by Councillor Deputy Mayor Borg. Any discussion? There being none, put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next item on the agenda is CCL 098-23, final draft of the Overland Flow Floodplain Risk Management Study and plan for Hurstville, Moordale and Peakhurst Ward. Councillor Kanyarski.
I move the the officer's recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Kanyarski, seconded by Councillor Catras. Put it.
Can I just ask a couple of questions?
Sure, Councillor Catras.
Just quickly. I know that there were some questions and answers given. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, stand, Councillor Catras.
I know that there were some questions and answers given, and I appreciate the answers, and because they were in context of what I wanted to ask. But there are a couple of little questions that I posed to the director. The number of properties that were tagged as being flood prone dropped from 6,000 to 3,000. That's what's in this answer. Were there any new properties added, as opposed new properties that did?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So Councillor Catras is correct. So the total number of properties reduced from 2016, which they were flagged at that point at about 6,200. In 2023, they had gone down to 4,974. Now there are two aspects that you need to consider. One is the probable maximum flood event. So that was those figures. Further, I guess 1 in 100 chance of flooding event. Properties dropped from 4,200 down to 2,300. So there was a significant decline. From 2022, so the first exhibited draft floodplain risk management study to 2023, there was a slight increase in those properties of about 300 properties.
And the next question is the actual benchmark, if you like, for declaring a property being subject to overland flow flooding was a depth of 150 millimetres. I understand they took properties away that were just ponding during a violent storm. Could you give us a bit of information as to how they established that as the benchmark? Was it some engineering exercise or some government policy?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the criteria for assessment was established by the senior stormwater engineer and in conjunction with the consultants. It's a similar sort of philosophy that has been used throughout other local government areas. So the methodology that we use is very similar to the likes of Bayside, Randwick, City of Sydney and Canterbury Bankstown Council. Councillor Catras, you're correct in saying that it was impacted by a depth of 150 millimetres or 10% of the total property. Other criteria used were puddles of less than 50 square metres. They were removed from those numbers because they were deemed as insignificant, and lots with less than 10% of the lot experiencing flooding were also removed.
Can I just say just quickly through the chair that I've got to say that this is an excellent document. It actually details quite a lot. It can be extremely useful to the development industry and to the building industry, especially when it comes to stormwater design. It goes from everything from identifying the extent of the flooding and the various areas of flooding. But the most interesting part, and I commend the document to you if you'd like to do some special reading, the most interesting part is where it has whole sections on how to deal with the aspect of flooding and how much they're going to cost. But congratulations to the directors that supervise this document and the staff members that were involved with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Catras. Any further discussion on the matter? There being none, I'll put them up. Councillor Borg.
Yeah, sorry. Just a question. One of the speakers made a mention about a property in Gloucester Road, and that an insurance company stated that they had a river at the back of their property and therefore they weren't able to get insurance. I'm just wondering if through you to the director, you could give an understanding, if you have one, of what role this document plays with insurance companies.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this document would be the overriding document. So any sort of falsehood around rivers running through the back of properties, this would be the reference document for not only insurers, but as Councillor Catras points out, any future capital works program to address those flooding issues. So some of those major works that we've actually included in there would actually address the flood prone nature in some areas.
So the example that was given, I looked it up on the map and it looks like there's a canal at the back. So is that just being incorrectly referenced currently to the insurance company, do you think, and would this report correct that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't really comment on what reference documents the insurance company have used in that particular instance, but as I say, this would form a reference document for any future sort of determinations. So they would pick this document up and they would identify that stormwater channel, not a river.
So you'd be satisfied that this document now should enable the insurers to make informed decisions on the correct infrastructure that's around the properties regarding flooding?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. I'm confident that we've now, for the 3 wards, we've done the study. There's still a bit of work to do. We received funding from the Department of Environment and Planning for this current budget year, and we've just recently engaged new consultants to do the other 2 wards. So that'll be underway. It's about an 18-month to 2-year process.
Could I provide a point of clarification through you, Mr. Mayor, on this?
Sure, Councillor Catras.
Just quickly, I understand that the document can be relied upon, but it does really depend on the interpretation of the insurance company itself. Last week, I ended up getting my building insurance, and it was $1,000 extra with, and I might as well name it, AAMI. And then I went to NRMI, and they were $1,000 cheaper. When I asked AAMI why the increase of $1,000, and they said you're in a flood zone, and the fact that you're in a flood zone, and I said, but my house is 15 metres above the river. Oh no, that's what we've interpreted. So I suggest you shop around.
Thank you, Councillor Catras. Any further questions or discussion on the item? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. We now move over to notice of motions. Councillors, the first notice of motion by Councillor Symington is no domestic violence walk 2023. Councillor Symington. Sorry, Councillor Wang, if you could.
I second that. I second that.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the motion as it's been published on the business paper. Councillors, this will be the 3rd no to domestic violence walk since Georges River Council reconfirmed its commitment to hold its own standalone event in 2019. The COVID pandemic stopped the walks in 2020 and 21, but at the same time exposed the domestic abuse pandemic, which had been hidden within our communities for far too long. It's very important that we continue to raise awareness, and when the community bands together in events like these, it ensures that a strong message is spread. Domestic abuse is not selective, and it can happen to anyone, no matter where you are or who you are or where you live. On average, 1 woman is killed in Australia every 10 days by an intimate partner. The Domestic Violence Death Review Team found that 97% of intimate partner domestic violence homicides in New South Wales between 2000 and 2018 were preceded by coercive control, where the perpetrator used emotional and psychological abuse towards the victim. That's why the New South Wales Parliament passed the Crimes Legislation Amendment Coercive Control Act 2022 to criminalise coercive control in current and former intimate partner relationships. This will come into effect in 2024 after an extensive implementation period involving significant investment. If found guilty, perpetrators face up to 7 years in prison. I was surprised to learn that the wider community has a very poor understanding of coercive control. Independent research conducted by the Department of Community and Justice found that 2 in 5 people claim to know what coercive control means, and only 1 in 5 could correctly identify at least one aspect of coercive control. That's why raising awareness is vital, because knowledge
protects. Because of this poor understanding, the Minns Labor government in August launched a website dedicated to explaining coercive control at newsouthwales.gov.au/coercive-control. The cycle of intergenerational violence is another big concern. We need early intervention via school education programs to break this terrible cycle in our community. Children inevitably mimic and learn interpersonal skills from their parents, and that is why children who grow up witnessing and experiencing domestic violence are more likely to be either perpetrators or victims later in their own intimate relationships. Their exposure to abuse also increases the likelihood of them turning to substance abuse. Substantial funding and resources need to be committed, and maybe that's being planned. I hope so. In 5 days' time, it will be the 20th anniversary of my younger brother's death. And I've been thinking a lot about how our home life shaped the choices my brothers made and the paths they took. Darren, or Dazza as he was known, was handsome, sporty, charismatic and intelligent, but he died of a heroin overdose at 38. And 2 weeks ago, I found out that my older brother, who was suffering from cerebral atrophy due to chronic alcoholism, that was his substance of choice, just like my father's, and he became an abuser, just like my father was, and then went on to do that to his numerous partners and son. I see now that they were both victims, and the odds were stacked against them having normal lives. Did they ever have a chance? That was over 50 years ago, and only one family. The cycle of intergenerational domestic abuse still thrives in our community. It scares me to even think about how many people's lives have been impacted by intergenerational domestic violence and will continue to be impacted. So much pain and so much suffering. We must always remember that it is our collective responsibility to call out domestic abuse and say it is unacceptable. I still believe we can stop it, but when that will be, I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Symington. Any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Wayne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I support Councillor Symington's motion full-heartedly. So it's also based on my personal experience doing some charity work dealing with the domestic violence victims. And as Councillor Symington said, so the coercive control is less known to public, and it comes in different forms and shape. One of them is what we call it financial domestic violence. So, like example could be so for one partner transfer money to the other partner for child support, it will send some abusive language. So this is there's no strict legislation against it, but it's considered a form of domestic violence. So the more we raise awareness for domestic violence, the more we can do. And the other aspect I want to mention is the impact of domestic violence is really profound. It lasts for a lifetime and even intergenerational, like Councillor Symington mentioned. So as a councillor, I think we are in a good position to do more about it. I fully support it, and let's do more work for against domestic violence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Councillors, any other speakers for the motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. The next motion is traffic study for Mortdale Town Centre. Councillor Jamieson.
Thank you. Today we touched on a large.
Moved by Councillor Jamieson, seconded by Councillor Smoothly.
Sorry, got carried away there.
Councillor Jamieson.
Today we touched on the large traffic issues occurring in Mortdale right now here today. After listening to the community, it was clear that we need to address the current situation way before we can address any future master plans. The current streetscape upgrade took parking spaces away, which affected the traffic flow as people went round and round trying to find car parking space. The aim is that we try to find parking and creative and efficient parking in the first instance, perhaps looking at elderly drop-offs outside IGA, chemists, podiatrists, doctors. In addition, if we could look at employees having better all-day parking access. I thank the staff for their efforts and appreciate that they will probably do this in this financial year. And once these parking issues have been resolved, we can then start looking at possible rectification of traffic issues and budget for more specific issues. Oh, and, sorry. And I should have done this before, but I'm not quite sure and I can't remember if we actually asked and answered the lady's question in regards to what sort of time. Oh,
We didn't answer it.
We didn't answer it. Can I maybe ask it so I can give her an answer? Yeah.
Take it offline.
I'll take it.
Thank you, Councillor Jamieson. Councillor Smith.
No, I'll just speak briefly. I agree with this traffic study. Morphdale, during peak hour traffic, it's just terrible. Even myself, when I go down there, it takes probably about 20 minutes to find a car spot during peak hour traffic. And a lot of, what was the guy's name?
James Hamilton.
Not James Hamilton, the owner of the IJ one. Joe. I understand what you're saying. People go around looking for parking and then just decide to leave the area and go somewhere else to do their weekly shopping. So I hear and I agree with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smoothly. Any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Amber Hayper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just find that a bit hypocritical to be supporting this motion when we've just, how you voted, Councillor Smurdy, in respect of the Mortdale Master Plan. Thank you, Councillor Jamieson, for your motion. I support the motion that concerns an issue of great significance in our community, parking within the Mortdale Town Centre. The motion as presented comprises of three key elements each aimed at improving parking conditions and enhancing the overall experience for residents, visitors and business owners in our vibrant town centre. Firstly, the motion calls upon the General Manager to identify opportunities to increase short-term parking within the centre. This is a crucial step towards addressing the concerns of those who visit our town centre for quick errands or shopping trips. Short-term parking options will not only make life easier for our community members, but also encourage more frequent visits to local businesses, thereby boosting the local economy. The findings from this initiative will be very invaluable. Secondly, we must recognise that parking-related issues often stem from a lack of awareness and understanding amongst business owners and their employees. The motion proposes the creation of a communication package to educate those stakeholders about the importance of using appropriate parking, such as off-street or unrestricted options. Encouraging parking compliance not only eases the congestion within our town centre, but also contributes to a safer and more convenient environment for all. It's a win-win situation for businesses, employees and the community. And lastly, the motion looks to the future by calling for a parking occupancy study. So the study will delve into both restricted and unrestricted parking within the centre, providing us valuable data that will inform future decisions. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Amber Hayper. Councillors, any other speakers for or against the motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next motion is New South Wales Litter Prevention Grant Program. Councillor Mort. Moved by Councillor Mort. Sorry, Councillor Amber Hayper, if you could just turn off your mic. Moved by Councillor Mort, seconded by Councillor Lansbury. Councillor Mort.
I just want to make a quick amendment, which I supplied the directors earlier today, and to add a part B to that. And the part B would be that Council Waste Management Team develops a holistic education campaign to cover both illegal dumping of litter throughout the LGA.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Lansbury? Yep. No worries. You can continue, Councillor Mort.
Just quickly.
That becomes the motion now.
Yeah. Councillors, I propose this motion tonight confidently, knowing that all of us would like to see a reduction in litter across our LGA. There can be no doubt that our LGA increases in population with challenges in ensuring things such as litter reduction grow significantly. While the litter hotspot audit conducted in March this year by Council across 50 sites resulted in a good report which directors and the team should be congratulated on, the challenge is relentless. A grant such as this would greatly assist current efforts to prevent litter increases and enable Council to better act on the potential areas of improvement raised in the audit report. I encourage Council to approve this motion so in 2024 the good work can be maintained and amplified. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mort. Councillor Ainsworth, would you like to say a few words? No. Any other speakers for the motion or against the motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. The next motion is by Councillor Lou, New South Wales Small Business Month 2023. Sorry, Councillor Mort, if you could just turn off the mic. Sorry, Councillor. Yeah. Moved by Councillor Lou, seconded by Councillor Koniarski. Councillor Lou.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My motion concludes that the October this month is New South Wales Small Business Month, and acknowledge the contribution of small businesses to the Georges River Council local economy. Thank council officers for their partnership with St. George Business Chamber to run a small business event on Wednesday, which is 25th of October, on the important topic of cybersecurity. Because I wanted to just give a very brief introduction for the theme for October 2023 of these small business month for this year is My Small Business. That's the theme, and it focuses on providing assistance and tips on how small businesses can strengthen their business in 7 key areas. So within these seven key areas, cybersecurity is 1 out of 7. So that's why I wanted to emphasize the second point, and then request the council officers continue to explore new partnership initiatives with the local Chamber of Commerce to support our local business community. So back to a few months ago, I put a motion to council M03723 cybersecurity awareness. So I'm glad to see that these motion being delivered by part of this motion. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lou. Councillor Koniarski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support this motion brought to us by Councillor Lou. And small business is the backbone of the Australian economy, and I believe it should be celebrated every day, not just in 1 month. But you can do that by actually visiting your small businesses, your local grocers, butchers, chemists, etc., rather than the big supermarkets.
Thank you, Councillor Koniarski. Councillor Symington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also rise to support Councillor Lou's motion. Small businesses are the engine room of our economy. They employ most of our workers and our apprentices, and I know from personal experience how hard it is to run a small business and try and keep your head above water. Surviving post-COVID has been tough for small businesses that were able to make it through the pandemic. If it wasn't enough to deal with that, now they have to deal with the impact of the interest rate rises. That's why it's imperative that we have a proactive local business chamber. This way businesses can build networks, showcase their goods and services, access support and expertise, which helps them connect and grow. I think it's a great move from Georges River Council to enter into this partnership with the St. George Business Chamber, and I can't see any negatives, only positives. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Symington. Any other speakers for the motion or against the motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next motion is pedestrian safety measures on Rose Street, Hurstville. Councillor Wang. Moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Symington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I move the motion as on the screen. There's a small amendment after I discussed with the staff. The amendment is just a small one, just saying, in addition to seeking funding from the state, I also propose to seeking fund from the federal government as well. So that's about it.
Are you happy with that amendment, Councillor Symington? Yep.
Thank you.
So that becomes the motion. Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first and foremost, I want to express my gratitude to the dedicated staff who assist me in crafting this motion, and I extend my heartfelt thanks to the community members who had joined us today and voiced their support for this important cause. So together, so we can make a difference. Can I have that picture on the screen, please? Yeah. So I invite your attention to the image displayed on the screen. So this illustrates the location of Rose Street, Hurstville. So this street just situated off Forest Road into the rooftop parking of Westfield Shopping Center. So on either side of the Rose Street, you'll find the bustling shops, making it truly unique and vibrant area. Due to its strategic location, Rose Street has evolved into a busy passage and a significant traffic hotspot. So in fact, substantiated by traffic survey data. The image before you was captured by the local newspaper in the wake of a tragedy and fatal traffic accident in January 2021. Unfortunately, several other unreported accidents have occurred in and around Rose Street. It is imperative that we take action to address the pressing issue of traffic safety before it's too late. So the positive news is that our council traffic team has conducted a thorough traffic survey, demonstrating that the traffic data surpasses the threshold established by TFNSW for the installation of a pedestrian crossing. To put it into perspective, the number of pedestrians crossing this area exceeds the threshold by a staggering tenfold. This alarming statistics underscores the urgency of the situation, highlighting the perilous condition faced by pedestrians in the absence of a designated crossing. So in addition to the paramount safety concerns, I'd like to emphasize two additional points. First, Rose Street is frequently traversed by school children before and after school hours. They visit local businesses and in some cases gather at the shopping center for socializing. It's well documented that the school children tend to act more impulsively and are at a higher risk of traffic-related accidents. Secondly, the Westfield Shopping Center precinct stands as the epicenter of economic activities in Hurstville. Any traffic incidents within this precinct can have adverse repercussions on the operations and reputations of local business. In response to all these concerns, local business has initiated a petition in favor of establishing a pedestrian crossing. They have gathered substantial support from shop owners, both large and small. I have personally held several on-site meetings with these local businesses, spanning from the corner tofu shop to the Westfield risk and security team. The collective concerns regarding traffic safety are resounding, and the call for a pedestrian crossing is overwhelming. Together, we have brainstormed potential solutions, identifying two viable locations for the crossing, one near Humphrey Lane and the other at the intersection with Forest Road. We awaited the professional assessment. Moreover, so we have raised the issue of illegal stopping for uploading goods, which possess an additional safety risk for traffic. That's why I'm also proposing the establishment of an additional loading zone, primarily aimed at enhancing both safety and business productivity. So in conclusion, I have been deeply concerned about the Rose Street traffic hotspot for an extended period. And over the past month, I've closely collaborated with the local businesses and our council's proficient traffic team. I hope this motion will serve as the catalyst required to bring about the tangible improvement in the traffic situation, following all the diligent studies and surveys conducted. So your support is immensely appreciated in our shared endeavor to enhance safety and well-being in our beloved community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Simington.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Wang for his advocacy in relation to Rose Street and for bringing this motion to Council tonight. The safety of our residents is paramount, but we do need to be extra vigilant when a high volume of children are involved. It's been proven that up until 14 years of age, children are not able to cross roads as safely as adults because their visual judgment and motor skills are still developing. So it's imperative that the safety issues are dealt with safely. We're fortunate to have council officers that are proactive and solutions focused when it comes to issues like these. So I have every confidence that they can resolve the traffic concerns that Councillor Wang has raised tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Syrington. Any other speakers for or against the motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. The next motion is St George Migrant Information Day. Councillor Liu. Moved by Councillor Liu, seconded by Councillor Kanyarski. Councillor Liu.
Oh, thank you, Mr. May. That my motion will be that Council congratulate ADS for coordinating St George Migrant Information Day 2023. That the Council congratulates staff from Bayside Council and our Georges River Council who supported ADS in the delivery of St George Migrant Information Day 2023. Back to the 11th of October, some of councillors from Bayside Council and Georges River Council, Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor Moore, Councillor Asham, and Bihapaha and myself, we were at the our Marana Auditorium to attend and support this Migration Day. I can see on the side there are, I think, department from federal government and state government and local community organizations, such as CAS, such as Asian Women Works and Shop Front Arts, and lots of those local community organizations. And I'm happy to see Service New South Wales part of the service provider. I remember back to last month, within my motion, I really want to see the Service New South Wales program. Service funders program will be introduced at this information day. So I'm happy to see one of their stores is there. And I wanted to congratulate our staff and I wanted to recognize this working pattern for our council, working with other local council and the local community organization to deliver this program that community needs. And I also find out one thing, there are a lot of those service provider from who provide the federal, who get the funding from federal government and provide the aid service and ADS services to the community. It seems it reflect the demand from the community, but I've been advised some of the local providers, they don't have the I know it's not council to issue, but I've been advised some of them complain to some of the federal departments saying some of the providers, they don't have the license, they're doing the business. I don't know who they are, but I've been heard some of that. So it really drew my attention. That's not part of the motion, but just want to give you a heads up. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Councillor Kanyarski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, well done, Councillor Liu. That's a great motion. I too attended that day and I walked around through Marana Hall and was quite informative. But for me, the best part of the day was picking up free sausage sizzle from the local Lions.
No doubt. Thank you, Councillor Kanyarski. Any other speakers for or against the motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next motion is maintenance and remediation of street trees in Cogra CBD. Council Deputy Mayor Bull.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the motion as published in the paper, and if I can have a seconder, then I will speak to the motion.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Bull, seconded by Councillor Marnie.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank Mrs. Suzanne O'Connor, who is the self-appointed guardian and carer of street trees in Cogra. For over 2 decades, Suzanne has been taking the time to fill containers from nearby water sources and water the street trees in Cogra. The trees in Belgrave Street, Cogra, are healthy and thriving, as they're largely in garden beds built into the streetscape. And sadly, despite Mr. Connor's best efforts, the same can't be said for all of the trees in the adjacent Montgomery Street, Cogra, and some are looking a little bit sad and some are not really thriving. I'd like to thank Mr. Hans Kludas, Council's Manager of City Operational Services, and Mr. Kieran O'Neill, Council's Team Leader of Tree Maintenance, who met with Ms. O'Connor and myself on site to inspect the trees in Montgomery Street and discuss what can be done to remediate them and help them thrive. And as we see ever increasing densities in Cogra CBD and the Cogra North areas, coupled with the shortage of green space, the tree-lined streets of Cogra are critical to soften the built form and cool the streets. So I hope you can support this motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Borg. Councillor Marnie.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor. No comments.
Any other speakers for or against the motion? Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next motion is community engagement policy submissions. Councillor Jamieson, moved by Councillor Jamieson, seconded by Councillor Ambi-Hapaha. Councillor Jamieson.
Thank you. I actually submitted this motion when I started receiving many submissions of the master plan from a reciting outside our LGA, so it's a bit ironic. I'm very interested in hearing from the community and reading the consultants' reports. I appreciate each and every individual comment that people take the time to write, and it is key to my decision making. Myself and other councillors are copied into submissions from people who wanted 6 to 8 stories in Mortdale, and so I wanted to talk to those people to get a better understanding of their point of view. So I called them. This is where it was clear to me that many of these people supported the RSL, but when questioned about the rest of Mortdale, most, all except about 20 people, actually only wanted 4 stories in the rest of Mortdale. It was lucky that the submissions were sent to me and I could call people directly. If they hadn't, I would have assumed that there was a large sum of people that really wanted 6 stories all over Mortdale. This would have influenced my decision making. It was upon trying to engage with people who wrote the many submissions that I started to have concerns about the integrity of the engagement process in terms of data collection verification. I had people state that they didn't sign the form. Others I tried to contact had phones that were disconnected. Some were from email addresses.
Sorry, Councillor Jamieson. I think if there are any allegations of that sort, then there would be methods by which people can make formal complaints. And I don't believe that this is the right forum to be alleging those.
I'm not alleging that, I'm
comments.
just saying it's
Sorry?
just a fact. Their phones were disconnected for whatever they could have typed in the wrong number.
Understandable, but I'm happy for you to keep it on the community engagement policy and how we can strengthen that. But in terms of specifics that certain things were not done or were not adhered to, I'd just advise you to probably refrain from that and just keep on the policy.
Yeah. So, for an example, the other day I responded to an email that the email didn't exist. I'm now concerned that there is also a risk where, if unchecked, there could be a backdoor to possible corruption of the process and skewing stacking submitted results. Not that I'm saying that it's happened, but I'm saying this could be an exposure for high interest stuff. It is critical that our...
I'm sorry, Councillor Jamieson, there's a point of order. There's, I can direct. No, sorry, Councillor Catras.
Yeah.
Councillor Catras, you've got a point of order.
Even an inference that there's corruption shouldn't be actually said in this.
That is correct,
There is
Councillor
no.
Catras.
This is totally against
Your point is made.
code of meeting practice.
Yes.
If you're assuming corruption, report it. I don't care if you're saying, oh, possibly.
The point is made, Councillor Catras. You are correct. Councillor Jamieson, you will please just keep it on the.
Okay. So for me, I would like the project to be to help me make informed decisions. I would like to see people be required to provide their physical address to legitimise the submission. They can be from outside the LGA, but councillors, I want to be informed of where they're from so I can make a decision. And to be honest, I want to know if they say, for example, with the Mortdale Master Plan, I want to know if they work, live or shop in the Mortdale. And it's fine. I don't care if they're out or whatever, then I can make a more informed decision. To be honest, I see that a really good consultation process should be collaborative, explaining, discussing questions and answers. So it's big both back and forth. A successful two-way consultation process should not have such extreme divisive discussions, that there should be a lot more collaboration, a working system which includes genuine listening and actually solving the issues. So, for example, things like the traffic, even though it might go across departments, it might actually have nothing to do with the planning department. So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Jamieson. As the seconder of the motion, Councillor Amber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think what Councillor Jamieson was asserting to was specifically on the authenticity of the submissions that are provided in any consultation process. So I think I support your motion because I think it's really important. We all experienced an email the night before the the mayoral election, which I won't divulge too much into, but the fact that anyone can create a submission on the whim of creating an email would question the veracity of the submissions for the purposes of making us have informed decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Amber. Any speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Catchus. Sorry, Councillor Amber. Thank you. Councillor Catchus,
Believe it
are
or
you
not, this is
speaking?
one time that I agree with Councillor
Sorry.
Jamieson.
You're speaking for the motion?
Yeah, I'm speaking for it. I think it's a great idea because Councillor Jamieson was deflecting the whole issue to those people. From what I could see, the people she rated were the people that were, saying that we want option 1A. And did you ever question the people that didn't want option 2A? And from what I remember and what I saw, there were numerous ones who supported option 2A with not even a phone number, not even address. It's just Brian Smith. So I totally agree with Councillor Jackson on this one because what's good for the goose is also good for the gander. It goes both ways. It's the option 1A supporters and the option 2A. It wasn't the option 1A supporters altogether that were not putting their names down. It was also option that were not putting their phone numbers down and their addresses down. It was also the people that had option 2A. So please, if we don't get the addresses, if we don't get their full names and their full numbers, then either way, we don't accept them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Or Councillor Jamieson.
Thank you, Councillor Catchus. Councillors, any other speakers for or against the motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next motion is illegal advertising signage. Councillor Mort, moved by Councillor Mort, seconded by Councillor Lansbury.
Thank you. My motion tonight, that council take action to remove illegal advertising signage that is placed on parapoles, that a report be provided to council outlining the feasibility of an education campaign in order to prevent further offending. Let's speak to that. So I propose this motion tonight with complete empathy for council maintenance crews, who I am told are diligently working to ensure the removal of illegal advertising signage throughout our LGA. However, it is now at an epidemic proportion. We must do everything possible to increase the level of attention being paid to the removal of this unwanted and intrusive signage on telegraph poles, trees and various other public spaces. In a 1 kilometre radius from my home, I counted 15 advertising signs in Coles Point, Carl Bay, Blakehurst and South Horseville area. Everything from maths tutoring to asbestos removal, concreters, all sorts of things. So I say I'm aware of the current efforts to eradicate this problem, as in what the directors have had to say, but I put this motion forward in the hope that it may focus and intensify our operational teams to have a blitz on this ever-growing problem. As I went around and I have 13 locations, as I say, within a kilometre radius of my homes, which I'll pass on. So thank you. I hope you can support my motion this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Mort. Councillor Lansbury. No. Any other speakers for or against the motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next motion is Battle of the Bridges 2023. Councillor Lansbury. Moved by Councillor Lansbury, seconded by Councillor Mort.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Moving the motion as it appears on the business paper. I'll just say a few things about it. I think the second paragraph, or is it third, I guess maybe, but the one that says the inaugural Battle of the Bands event was held at the Sutherland Arts Theatre on Saturday the 23rd of September. The event was initiated through feedback captured at Battle of the Beats event held in Youth Week in April 23, when young people noted that there is a lack of opportunity for young people to engage with live music locally. I think that kind of sums it up. You know, I think I went to the event in my capacity as Deputy Mayor to do a speech, my final duty as Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Mort came with me. We got our rock chick on a Saturday night and went down and saw the performance down at Sutherland. It was a great night. Like, it was actually, you know, one of those sort of standing around gigs, and there were young kids there probably cheering on their older brothers and sisters and families, being an all ages event, alcohol free of course, but they provided food, etc. This is the sort of event that we should be providing for our young people more frequently. If we could do this as an annual event, that would be fantastic. This was the first time it happened, as Georges River won on the applause on the night. Perhaps we get to host it next year. I don't know if that's the way that it's going to work. However, having said that, Sutherland Theatre was a really good venue for it. I bore my kids to tears by always saying that, oh, you know, when I was your age and underage and there were bands everywhere and every second pub had bands on. There just isn't that sort of live music scene in Sydney, or pretty much anywhere in Australia these days. It's coming back to life. You know, the lockout laws changed all of that. That doesn't obviously cater for underage people. Well, used to in my day, but not so much now because you need ID. But I just think these sorts of events are great for kids to get together, showcase their talents, not just in their garages or their bedrooms like my son does, playing deathcore metal. It's a great opportunity, and if we can continue to provide this event on an annual event, perhaps include more of these sorts of things in Youth Week and just opportunities. I think over the years there was an event down at Cars Park in school holidays, down on the Stone Stage there on a few occasions, just things like that. Great opportunities for youth to be doing something apart from sitting in their rooms online gaming, getting out in the world, entertaining their friends and being entertained by their friends. I think it's a great initiative, and we need to promote more of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Lansbury. Any other speakers for or against the motion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Next motion is Bushfire Seminar Emergency Ready Week. Councillor Marnie, moved by Councillor Marnie, seconded by Councillor Wang. Councillor Marnie.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I attended this event with Councillor Wang. It was an amazing example of the community, council and government emergency experts working together. Over 120 residents attended and were provided with comprehensive information about bushfire awareness. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Wang, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the bushfire is like the curse in Australia. So we are lucky last year, but may not get lucky again this year. All the signs are pointing to a possible bushfire season this year. So this, I went to this seminar just because of that, and it's very informative, and it's a great collaboration for all the organizations coming together to give very, very useful, practical information. And actually, I cannot wait to share this information with the council, with the community. So I think Councillor Marnie's motion would draw further attention to this bushfire matter and pave the way for further engagement for the community. Thank you, Mr. Marnie.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. Any other discussion on the matter? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. We move over to questions with notice. Question with notice 031-23 LED screen for Hurstville Entertainment Centre. Councillor Liu, do you have any further questions on this?
No, thank you for the officers to provide the update for that. So I know that they are going to work on to seek for fundings and still budgeted in the coming few years. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Lou. I'll put that question with notice to the floor. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Question with notice 32-23, placing faded street signs in Georges River LGA. Councillor Lou, do you have any further questions?
No, but still appreciate the council's relevant personnel and staffs are working so hard for that. I also understand a lot of councillors receive requests from the local community. Thank you for the staff to react for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lou. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Question with notice 33-23, update on matters resolved concerning Glen Lee. Councillor Marnie, do you have any further questions regarding that?
No question, Mr. Mayor, but I'd just like to thank the Director and Manager of Strategic Planning and any other staff that were involved in this very complex report, which the community is no doubt are consuming at the moment with a lot of interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Councillors, I now need a procedural motion to move into closed session, but at this point in time, the meeting will move into a committee of the whole. Sorry, one sec.
I'm happy to move, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I've got to read all this. Okay, I've got to read all this. At this point in time, the meeting will move into a committee of the whole to allow consideration of a closed matter in closed session in accordance with Section 10A of the Local Government Act 1993. That in accordance with Section 10A, Clause 2 of the Local Government Act, Council enter into closed session to discuss CCL 049A-23 waste collection tender negotiations for the waste contract, as these items relate to commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a competitor of the council. Accordingly, members of the press and public are excluded from the closed session, and access to the correspondence and reports relating to the items considered during the course of the closed session will be withheld. I will ask the Acting General Manager if there have been any written representations of objections from the public.
No, there hasn't.
There have been none. A procedural motion is required to move into closed session. I'll call for a mover and a second. Moved by Councillor Smerdley, seconded by Councillor Konyaski. I'll put the motion. All those in favour to move into closed session say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. For the members of the public and the press, live streaming will cease and resume following the confidential session of council. Once the items are addressed, the live streaming will recommence and the resolution which occurred in closed session will be confirmed. Councillors, I call for a motion to adopt the resolution from the closed session.
I move that, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Konyaski, seconded by Councillor Smerdley. That the Committee of the Whole recommendation from the closed session in relation to items CCL 049A-23 waste collection tender negotiations for waste contract of this meeting be received and noted as a resolution of council without any alteration or amendment thereto. That the recommendations of the closed session be adopted as follows. I'll read it out real quick. That the Committee of the Whole recommendation from the closed session. Oh, sorry. It's up there on the screen. I don't need to read that. Yep. Okay. Councillors, that's the motion up on the screen. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare that carried. Councillors, that brings us to the end of the agenda, and I declare the meeting closed at 10:39 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.